more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
A legendary quote by
Absolutely.
War never
Never
changes.
Was that General Shepard?
this is General
Yeah,
Shepard.
it was. What a great game.
Oh man, so fantastic.
The moment I stopped trusting the government,
General Shepard. Yeah.
I was like
When
9,
when
dude.
Roach and Ghost got put down by the 44 mag.
Spoiler alert, yeah.
The game was like 17 years old at this point or something.
You don't know.
If you haven't played Modern Warfare 2 somehow in the year of our Lord 2025, please play it. Black Ops 1 was the one that made me not trust the government. That was a kooky game, for sure.
Yeah, I think that was what one of my Instagram meme posts was about.
Yeah.
COVID really made me lost trust in the government. It's like when I lost trust in the government.
The Black Ops
Mason.
loading screen.
What do the numbers mean, Mason?
The numbers, Mason. What do they mean? That's actually my my bio on Discord. It pops up underneath my name when I enter call or whatever. It says the numbers, Mason. What do they mean?
That's also a legendary quote.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
man, they don't make them like they used to anymore.
No, they don't. They don't. You know what else they don't make anymore like they used to? Good legislation.
No.
Great segue.
Well,
Great segue.
Speaking of which,
Speaking of legislation being garbage nowadays.
well, I mean, the topic of conversation, this legislation has been in for quite a while.
Quite a while. Boys, we're talking about the NFA and the GCA today.
woo woo.
Well,
Was that a cheer on behalf of the NFA and GCA? Because if you want to leave,
No.
you can.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
he's hyped up because
I'm
today's
hyped to hear
episode
this.
today's episode is gonna be pretty legit.
It's also because you two know a lot more about what's going on right now than I do. I've been kind of living under a rock for a bit, so I'm excited to hear about this. I'm pumped.
I've been straight fired up every single time I go on social media for the past like 3 days. Like, especially when I was doing like a bigger deep dive into this topic. Because I don't know. I felt like I knew what the NFA was and like, you know, the general stuff, but like diving into the history a little bit and like I'm really, really excited to show you guys. I did a deep dive on the crime statistics.
He's got his crazy eyes. You know it's going to be good.
And I thought, like, I knew the crime, was going to be, like, the statistics were going to turn out the way that, you know, I thought that they were going to. But, like, even still, it blew me away, like, beyond what I thought it was going to be.
I'm excited to see because I haven't looked at like the crime stats and stuff with NFA weapons or anything like that, but I have a feeling I know where it's gonna go. But yeah, so we're gonna talk about the NFA, GCA, and also we're gonna talk about the SHORT Act and the SHUSH Act.
Right. That is, yeah.
Because that's kind of more culturally relevant today, as far as like right now this week, because it's been a big topic of conversation with that being heard in the House Ways and Means Committee recently. So, or not being heard, but being debated in the House Ways and Means Committee.
Yeah. So there's certain acts you can take as a pro-gun advocate if you want to currently, which is, you know, emailing these politicians, and
Calling their
offices and making your voice heard because they're starting to feel pressure and you know, the more calls, the more emails that they get, the more pressure they're going to feel. And we feel like it's about time that, you know, these politicians actually get their feet put to the fire a little bit because the ones that are holding up these acts right now are not the side that you think it is. It's the Republicans that are holding it up and changing the rules and trying to count it as a win, which
Yeah.
in our opinion it's not. So
Yeah.
we should probably start out with taking. I know we talked a little bit about it in the first episode, but we should probably take our hardline stance on the Second Amendment right now and just, let everyone know exactly where we stand with it.
Recreational nuclear weapons.
That's pretty bold. Well, it's not far off from like what I would say too. I mean,
Well, right. I mean, like, people hear that and they say, what? You just think that, like, random people should just have nukes? Like, you're insane.
I don't think anyone should have nukes.
I don't think, well, yeah, fair. But
We don't live in that kind of world.
we don't live in that kind of world. Pandora's box has already been opened.
They can't go back in. Yeah.
So,
nukes are
but
here
also
to
you got to
stay.
think of, like, how is the average person going to even get access to them? So what would making them legal to own by a civilian even, what difference would that even make? I'm not a nuclear physicist. I don't know how to make a nuke in my basement.
Yeah, but then like someone like, Elon Musk easily could buy a nuke and just have nukes on hand.
Sure.
Vladimir Putin has nukes.
Yeah, I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Joe
I get
Biden
that.
had nukes. There's
Fair.
no way he had access to the code.
But also,
no way, dude.
Yeah, there's
No way.
He got his vanilla and chocolate swirl ice cream scoop every day, and he was good to go. Okay, but let's do an exercise because most people, when you say that, they think that you're just being funny. But if we do a little exercise here, we'll talk through them.
Let's hear this exercise.
Okay, we're just gonna say, I'm gonna name something.
Okay.
And you think, honest opinion, should civilians own it?
Okay. Deal.
Unlimited access.
Yeah. No restrictions.
Suppressors.
Complete and utter unrestricted access.
This is level 1 here, all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Complete unrestricted access.
Short-barreled rifles.
Complete and unrestricted access.
Fully automatic machine guns.
Complete and unrestricted access.
Grenades.
Unrestricted access.
Rocket launchers.
Unrestricted access.
Tanks.
Unrestricted access.
Fighter jets.
Unrestricted access. I want one. Give me an F-15. I want an F4 Phantom, bro.
Dude, what is above fighter jets?
A Navy warship.
A Navy warship.
Unrestricted access. Dude, if I could have an aircraft carrier, that'd be sick for my F4 Phantom fleet that I want.
Can you think of stuff above that?
It would start to get into like ICBMs and nukes after that, I think.
Yeah, like Predator
because
missiles.
that's what you would arm a ship with, pretty much.
Yeah. How about that? Predator missiles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the thing I think about, the way I think about it, at least, is, number one, how is a normal person going to possibly get access to that in the first place?
Well, exactly.
Second of all, the Second Amendment was written specifically for fighting tyranny, foreign and domestic. That's what it is. It's not for like hunting. It's not for like, recreational shooting or whatever. Those are all protected by it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what it was written for.
No,
it was written for fighting tyranny, foreign and domestic.
Okay.
So, if there are militaries out in the world that have predator drones, battleships, full autos, suppressors, grenades, I should be able to defend myself or my nation with those same things.
Yeah, by the way, I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said. And, like, people are going to watch this and they're going to be like, as soon as we said full auto, they were out. But here's the deal. And I agree with that. And it goes to the same point. It's like, okay, you have to think like, because this is always the gotcha thing. Whenever you talk to anti-gunners, they're always like, "Oh, so you think anyone should be able to walk around with a fully automatic gun?" And I always go, "Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I do." And they look at me like I'm nuts. I'm like,
Mhm.
"You don't know how much a fully automatic gun costs. Like, they're
No.
not cheap. If you can afford, like, what is a fully automatic gun like pre-banned? What are those going for right now? Like,
It depends on what it is, but generally tens of thousands of dollars.
and you could argue whether or not if it was legal, the prices would come down. Yes, but still, you're still talking about, you know, upwards of a couple $1,000s.
Right. I mean, if they were completely legalized, I mean, we would see
Yeah, I
full
guess
auto sear kits for $100 on eBay.
that's true, regardless of the fact. But then you take it up a next level, and we're talking about grenades in tanks. Like, how much do grenades cost? How much do tanks cost? Like, if you can afford the price tag of a tank or a F-18,
I know people that own tanks. Not know them personally, but like there's a guy in my Facebook group uh that has like multiple tanks.
are they like decommissioned?
Um
You could probably own one. You just can't have the artillery, right?
yeah, I
Without
probably
license.
probably.
But here's the thing: if you can afford the price tag of those things,
Yeah.
what are the likelihood that they're gonna use it for something bad?
Right. Like you're not going to get like a strung out meth head rolling down Main Street blowing up buildings and cars with their tank
Right.
because they spend too much money on meth.
Right. Right. If you have the amount of money that it takes to buy a tank or a fighter jet,
Yeah.
chances are you're not stupid enough to lose everything
Yeah.
to go on a freaking rampage.
Right.
So, you know, I think you should probably know
But
how
even
to fly if you buy F-18, then, you know, fly it around. But
but all of this argumentation is moot because
shall not be infringed.
yeah, because shall not be infringed is written in there. So
Yeah.
it doesn't even matter. I don't care what your argument it is. Shall not be infringed is written on paper. There you go. Who cares?
Right.
That's my trump card.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
Well, it's our trump card. And unfortunately, in this country, you know, there's a saying, you give an inch, they take a mile.
yeah.
And that's where we're at in today's
That is indeed where we're at.
culture. And it's going to take a lot to get it to go back the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And the likelihood that it goes all the way to that is very, very slim.
It's very slim, but it has to take a cultural change, which is what we're trying to do here.
Exactly.
And I think it's starting to shift. I mean, with the advent of super safeties and FRTs, you know, no longer being restricted by the ATF, and that's it. Pretty much is as close to full auto as you're gonna get. It's not exactly full auto, but it's as close as you're gonna get without actually being there. So, you know, like that kind of stuff is already making stuff like the GCA pretty much irrelevant.
And we're gonna get into that with some comparisons when we start talking about the NFA.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna kind of like truly break down how absolutely stupid that it is. Like it literally is pointless. And we're gonna get into that a little bit later, but yeah, it's the same thing. It's you can but there's that thing with the FRTs is like I don't know. I feel like they're gonna do something to try to take it away.
You know, you may be right, but
Well, I know they hate it.
oh, for sure.
I mean, the ATF already tried to get them removed once, and they failed.
For sure. But the thing that we have to consider too is that it was already reversed once And, you know, kind of in the legal system, there's a thing about you really can't double dip on, you know, regulations and stuff like that. Now, that's not to say that they won't try it, but if it does ever go to court, you know, the Supreme Court or whatever court will say, well, you said it was fine here, so what makes it, or you tried to restrict it, then you're like, oh, never mind, it's fine, but now it's not fine.
But
It was kind of like the thing with the pistol braces and stuff.
well, that's what I mean. Is like, if I know anything about our government, is they don't play by the rules.
True,
Especially when it comes to guns.
for sure.
They don't care if you know that they're pulling some
No,
BS on you.
I get that.
They'll do whatever it takes. But as far as our stance on the Second Amendment goes, I would say, yeah, we're
2A absolutists.
yeah,
That's the simplest way to put it.
right.
This episode's probably going to be pretty information heavy. So, dear viewer, buckle in because you're going to get a lot of numbers and words thrown at you.
Yes, and we'll try to break everything down in the simplest form possible.
Yeah.
We're not gonna break down everything all the way down to its bare bones because then this episode would be 6 hours long probably. But we are gonna go in pretty info heavy.
Yeah. Also, we've got guns in the studio to demonstrate like some of the stuff regarding to pistols, SBRs, stuff like that. So there are guns that we'll display just as a prerequisite. We don't have any ammunition in the studio, and we've checked all of them to make sure that they're safe. So for all you safety nerds out there, they're all good.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, you will see mags
They're all
in the
empty.
guns. All the mags are empty. They're just in there for demonstration purposes, basically, but they're all clear. We take gun safety very seriously, so
Yeah.
just be warned that we're taking all the precautions. So I guess.
So what do we jump into? The NFA, GCA?
I don't know. Does it make more sense to go into the NFA?
Probably
and
chronologically, because the NFA is the precursor to the GCA. Is first.
Think it makes sense to start at the end
Oh, start at the end first.
and then cut to the beginning.
Oh,
and then
sure. Luke, why don't you go to the?
He wasn't picking it up. I was trying to lay in the
Luke,
other guy's quote.
why don't you go to my doc?
You know what I'm talking about? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? And the
What?
other guys?
Is it? My doc, Luke. The other one.
Is it the short act?
Yep. Which quote?
From the other guys, when they're grilling him, the guy with the money laundering guy, and he like bribes them twice. And they go to the Jersey Boys, and then they go to the basketball game, and they come back, and they're like, "All right, no more bribes." And he's like, "Tell us what happened." And then he goes, "I think we should start at the end, and then from there we go to the beginning, and then they like cut him off." Can we look that up? I feel like an idiot trying to explain this scene to you guys.
It's been so long since I watched the movie that I don't really know. We're starting from the back. So we're going to talk about the short act and the SHUSH Act, right?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about why we're talking about the NFA and everything today, because the Short Act and the HUSH Act are currently...
The SHUSH Act.
Is it the SHUSH Act?
Yeah, it's suppressors...
Or the Hearing Protection Act?
The Hearing Protection Act and the SHUSH Act are different, and I actually have a whole really interesting thing about how they're different.
All right, so let's take us away, Mitchell.
Okay, so the Short Act is basically just short for example is stop harassing owners of rifles today. That's what short stands for. but it got introduced in January 31st, 2023, in the House and the Senate at the same time. The Senate version was introduced by Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas, and the House version was introduced by Andrew Clyde of Georgia. And basically, it's a challenge on the federal government's regulations of short-barreled rifles and shotguns. And so basically, what it does is it's redefining firearms under federal law. So it's going to remove SBRs, short-barreled rifles, SBSs, short-barreled shotguns, and like AOWs, any other weapons from the NFA. So it'll eliminate the tax stamp, the $200 tax stamp, and it will eliminate the registry of the registry for the taxes on the ATF. And then also it'll destroy the records that the ATF keeps for all the registrations for, SBRs, SBSs and stuff, because they have to keep a registry of that according to the NFA. And then also it'll block or like preemptively block regulations being put in by other like states or local governments on those things. Like there's some states that have on top of the NFA their own regulations on short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and stuff like that. So it'll also supersede those as well, which I like that as a gun owner, but at the same time, I also believe in states' rights too. But I guess when it comes to the Constitution itself, I think that the Constitution itself should supersede state regulations.
So even if it does get passed, like certain states can.
No, this would preempt that, so it would overrule local and state regulations on those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the short rundown of the short act.
Nice.
What?
The short of the short.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that's basically the rundown of the short act and kind of a little bit of the history of it. And then we could also talk about the SHUSH Act too, which
Well, that's the big one that's been getting attention, right? That's
I think the big one that's been getting the most attention is specifically the Hearing Protection Act. The Hearing Protection Act, and we'll talk about it in here.
Are they both up?
Yes, all three of them are in the House Ways and Means Committee right now. So the Short Act is in the introduced stage in Congress right now, so there's nothing really going on with it right now. It's just being discussed. And then the SHUSH Act was introduced into the Senate on January 30th, 2025 by Senator Mike Lee of Utah. And in the House on January 31st, 2025 by Michael Cloud of Texas. And also the SHUSH Act is in the introduced stage as well, so it's not really moving, it's just being talked about. So if we go
Well, why don't you just briefly explain what they are and where they're currently at, and then we'll talk NFA and what it is so everyone can like see, and then we'll talk about why these need to get pushed through.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So where are we with the SHUSH Act, and how is it different from the Hearing Protection?
So if we scroll down a little bit, I have a chart at the bottom here. And I can't really show you the differences between them without giving you a little bit of what they do. But basically, so the difference between the SHUSH Act and the Hearing Protection Act, now these both deal with suppressors. So the SHUSH Act removes suppressors from both the NFA and the GCA and treats them as non-firearms, or like accessories and not firearms. The Hearing Protection Act only removes them from the NFA, which would still make them under the GCA, so they would still be considered firearms. So for the SHUSH Act, they would be not required to have a background check done for them. So you would just buy it like you would buy uh, a a pistol grip on your AR or a handguard or whatever. But the Hearing Protection Act is still requires a background check, so it would just be like going and buying a gun from the gun store. You'd still do your 4473 on them or whatever, but it wouldn't be under the NFA, so you wouldn't have to pay your $200 tax stamp. And then for the SHUSH Act, that eliminates ATF regulation of suppressors altogether, but for the HPA, the Hearing Protection Act, the ATF still oversees suppressors under the authority of the GCA, the Gun Control Act. Both of them will remove the tax stamp requirement. The SHUSH Act, which is pretty cool, offers a retroactive tax stamp refund for your suppressor within a certain time period. I don't know what that is yet. I mean, it hasn't been passed, so we don't have a definitive answer on that, but that would be really cool. Whereas uh, it also has that provision in the Hearing Protection Act as well. So that's pretty cool, that if those were to pass, people that bought suppressors, recently to the bill could get their money back for their tax stamp, which would be neat.
Yeah, that would be neat, but I would, I would, I'm speaking for probably all gun owners. I think they would probably be okay with, just in trade of not getting their tax stamp money back,
Mm-hmm.
getting the SHUSH Act pushed through.
Yeah.
I mean, I would trade that
Yeah.
any day of the week.
Yeah.
I don't need my tax stamp money back. Keep it. Just get rid of the registry.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, like I said, the SHUSH Act is aiming to preempt, local and like state suppressor laws, whereas the Hearing Protection Act doesn't. But that's kind of the differences between them, and then we can talk about kind of what all of this is even for when it comes to the NFA and GCA. So we can get into those now.
Yeah. So
Why we need them.
We'll get into the NFA. I didn't really do anything with the GCA.
Okay.
I was more or less focused on the NFA, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're pretty read into the GCA, you might as well. I'll just go into what I had on the NFA. You can go into the GCA,
Sure.
and then we can go into like the other stuff that I got, and we can start doing some comparison
Yeah,
stuff.
definitely.
NFA, it's the National Firearms Act. It's a United States federal law passed in 1934. It was the first piece of major federal gun control legislation in the U.S., and it was primarily a tax and legislation law. And it was basically aimed at, certain types of firearms because in 1934 there was a lot of gang activity going on. Everything that's on the NFA, machine guns, classified as any firearm that fires more than one round with a single trigger pull. Short barreled rifles, we'll call them SBRs from here on out. Basically, all short barreled rifles are barrels on rifles under 16 inches, measured from the breech to the end of the barrel.
Yeah, they measure from the bolt face to the crown of the barrel.
Yeah. Suppressors, also called silencers, and destructive devices, which just basically is explosive grenades, large caliber weapons, and then also any other weapon or AOWs. This is basically the government's way of having a catch-all for stuff that they don't like.
It's pretty much anything that doesn't fall under those things.
If it's something that
It's pretty much anything else other than that.
yeah, they don't break it out very often, but the ATF and other organizations like to use that little caveat there at the end to really, make things interesting for stuff that they just don't really like that much. Pretty scumbag move in my opinion, but anyway,
It's kind of like when you're playing as a kid, with your buddy or whatever, and you just kind of start making up rules as you go.
I was gonna say it reminds
Yeah.
me a lot of
Like,
the
ooh,
basketball games
like,
we used to play in the.
I just killed you. I just shot you. And it's, no, I don't. I had a force field.
Yeah,
Like, well, I had a bullet that goes through force fields.
Yeah.
it's a
This is what it feels like.
That's exactly what it is.
It's a very much a little brother move where it's when the older brother
Okay.
when the older brother starts winning at a
Pause.
game and just stomping him, like
Yeah.
we're talking 43-0
Yeah.
in, backyard football. And then it's all of a sudden all these rules come out. Oh,
Mhm.
but you can't do that because of this rule. And then Big Brother feels bad, so he's got to play by the rules for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's exactly how it went.
But that is what the AOW rule is.
Yeah.
That is exactly it. That is a good descriptor of that.
Just
for
make
sure.
it up as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically what it means is all these weapons, for those of you who don't know, you can still buy these weapons. It's not like they outright banned them. You are still allowed to own these legally. You just have to go through a few extra steps. Instead of, going to your local gun shop and buying a gun, going through a background check,
Mm-hmm.
and going home with it, you have to pay a $200 tax stamp that goes to the federal government. You have to go through in a advanced background check. You got to get your fingerprints done.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have all your info sent in. It's much more invasive than a standard background check.
And they'll let your local law enforcement or local sheriff know that you're getting one of these items as well.
Yes, and this is the big part of it is the registry. So you have to register the firearm with the ATF, which is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. We'll probably have a whole episode on the ATF here pretty soon, and all their shenanigans. But basically, all you need to know about the ATF is ATF bad.
ATF bad.
ATF bad. So basically, it's a way of getting a voluntary registry.
Mm-hmm. It's a de facto registry of gun owners.
And in my opinion, it is the biggest reason why the NFA still exists today. That is what Big Brother wants. Is they don't really care about the $200 tax stamp, background checks, and the registration is what they really want.
Yeah.
And it's just a clear overreach, government overreach, and we just allow it. So why the NFA got started?
The mob.
It's basically the mob. Tommy guns, St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929, Thompson submachine guns. That was the big gun back in the day. And FDR, one of the worst presidents ever, thought it was a great idea to try to get rid of the gang crimes and stuff that was going on in that day by regulating what they viewed as gangster weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Which we'll get into gangster weapons later on in this video. A little foreshadowing. But NFA, not a ban, but a regulatory tax and registration, like we said, passed under Congress Taxing Authority. The $200 tax stamp, when they passed it, was, in today's money, it was equivalent to about $4,500. So that is just to go, that just goes to show you the level of overreach when it was passed. Is basically the $200 tax was meant to be a discouragement.
Yeah.
So you can imagine going to buy a suppressor today, and
they say, hey, $4,500 on top of your $800 to $1,200 that you're gonna spend on your can.
Basically, trying to make it.
The tax stamp is the only good thing that has come out of inflation.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. It might be the only thing I can think of where it's like inflation really helped us out there.
Yeah.
It just, and they never changed it. And I don't know why haven't they changed it? I guess I never really looked into why they haven't, but
Probably because they know that people would freak out about it now.
well, they can't now, but like I'm saying,
Yeah.
as time went on, like why didn't they?
Honestly, like you said, I don't think it's about the money. It's got to be just about
They just forgot about it. Well, I'm guessing they probably just didn't even really think that much about it until suppressors.
True, because I mean, when it comes to inflation, you don't really think about that. Like, oh, this $200 is actually less valuable. It goes less, it doesn't go as far,
And it just went on for so long.
Yeah, and I just think they just got, that was just the status quo, and they just didn't think to do anything about it. And honestly, again, I don't think that it's really about the money for them. I think it's just the registry.
Yeah.
Is what they genuinely care about.
Yeah. And here's another interesting fact is the original draft included handguns.
Yes.
But they were dropped because they were worried that they couldn't get the bill pushed through if handguns were on it, which is interesting. And also another thing we're going to get into later.
It also was actually not 16 inches for short-barreled rifles. It was originally 18, I believe. And I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 18 inches initially, but they're like, "Oh, we just sold like all of our military surplus M1 Garands to the civilian population, which have like 16.5-inch barrels or whatever." And now we're going to make all of these people that just bought our surplus weapons felons. Let's just drop it to 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. Wait a second. We're going to screw ourselves out of a lot of money if we don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, that and like just the idea that they were going to be like, oh, yeah, however many millions of this that we sold as surplus from, World War II. They're like, yeah, all the people that bought those, like, I guess they're screwed.
Yeah. And so
and they weren't bold enough to go, round them all up or whatever, do buybacks at that time. So they're just like, well, let's just lower it to 16.
I think it was, a combination of, Tommy guns in the mobs were like,
yeah,
the ones doing all the crime. So like they probably went under like the ruse that like, oh, Tommy gun bad, we have to stop these criminals. Let's ban these guns, And as we'll find out later on in the episode when we get into the crime statistics that, didn't really stop criminals from doing anything. And then but that was FDR. FDR screwed up a lot of things in this country, and we could probably do a whole episode on that idiot. But I would love to believe that it was just the government was trying to curb crime in America, but I think we all know by now that based on the other stuff that was done back then, it was more or less for gun registry and control, basically.
Yeah.
And then the NFA, it still stands today, almost 100 years later. But in 1968, the Gun Control Act,
the GCA,
updated the NFA, and Mitchell's going to get into that right now. In 1986, just the Firearms Owners Protection Act banned machine guns. So no longer could you use a tax stamp and get a machine gun. You are subject to additional licenses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To buy. Which you can still legally buy if you're a civilian. You can still own machine guns, but it's just the next level. Like you have the NFA, which is $200 tax stamp, invasive background check, gun registry with the ATF, and to get a fully automatic machine gun, there's a additional layer that we don't have to get into right now. But
so the GCA, the Gun Control Act, was enacted October 22nd, 1968. and basically it kind of expanded the reach of the NFA, and so I'll just give you some points here. So it created federal firearms licensing, so people that sell guns like commercially are required to have what's called an FFL, a federal firearms license. And so I can't just like order guns online and sell off stock without a license to do that from the government. So I have to buy a license from them, and they have to do inspections on me and stuff as if they would for any other business.
Yeah, and don't they need to know? They need to know like where these weapons are, and like you're like subject to like
Audits.
audits like constantly.
Yeah. They don't have enough ATF agents to do like regular checks every year anymore. But they do them regularly enough, I think.
They basically just use it as a weapon to screw with people who have businesses and
Yeah,
anyone who makes them angry.
yeah. And there were some problems with, the ATF getting into zero tolerance policies for screw ups on paperwork, like even little clerical errors where people are just getting license revoked under the Biden administration at an increase of 500%.
Yep.
So then it also talks about prohibited persons, which kind of expands like who can and can't buy a gun, because before the NFA you could still buy a gun if say you were under these prohibited persons lists. So the prohibited persons basically is convicted felons, individuals convicted of domestic violence, fugitives from justice, unlawful users of controlled substances, uh, mentally defective or committed to mental institutions, a person dishonorably discharged from the military, illegal aliens, or people under restraining orders for harassment or threats of domestic violence. So that's the people who are prohibited persons under the GCA. So I can't go into the gun store, and it says this on the 4473, which is your background check. It's, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Are you a fugitive from justice? Have you been convicted of domestic violence? It has all these questions on there. So if you answer yes to any of those, you can't buy a gun. It added age restrictions for people to purchase a firearm. So it's 18 for rifles and shotguns and 21 for handguns. That recently changed a little bit with the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Back in 2022, where now people that are between 18 and 21, they can still buy rifles and like long guns, but they go through a background check on their juvenile history, as well as I believe it's a week waiting period as well. So it just changed recently to that.
Insert big white gals.
And then it kind of just it prohibits the sale of firearms across state lines by unlicensed individuals, and licensed dealers may only ship to firearms to other licensees. So I can't just buy a gun online and have it shipped to me. It has to go to an FFL for me to do a background check. And then every firearm has to be serialized now under the GCA. So before the GCA, you didn't have to have a serial number on your gun. Now they have to under the GCA. Which they're like, oh, it'll be easier to trace them or whatever. I find that bogus, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing as the NFA. The NFA cracked the door into infringements on gun rights, and then 86 comes around and blows the door off of that. Drew doesn't like you touching the mic, Luke. Yeah, you touched it.
Oh,
You got
my
the
bad.
evil eye.
Don't touch the mic.
I was gonna say I think he got the evil eye.
I
Oh,
didn't get the evil eye. My phone's not buzzing. Somebody's phone's buzzing.
it's probably me. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff and modifications and stuff that have happened to, both of these acts that have kind of been hotly debated recently or, within the past 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Um
But yeah, like getting back to the point I was saying is like the NFA, they basically what they did is they went under the ruse that, oh, we're banning this for the safety of you.
yeah.
But there was always like an underlying, a motive there.
Yeah.
NFA cracked the door, and then the GCA really kind of went in deeper.
The fascinating thing about these, when you talk about public safety, this is a very commonly used phrase used by government. Oh, it's for public safety or whatever. All the time. They use it all the time. But if you had two brain cells to rub together, you would know that it just makes literally common sense that when you enact these laws, criminals, by definition, will not give up these weapons because they're criminals. They're already breaking the law, so who cares if they get an extra gun charge? And I know we'll get into this later.
Don't worry.
I know we'll get
cover
into this,
that.
but
Don't worry. We're going to go deep into that.
But it is so mind-numbing that it's like, oh, this is for public safety. We're banning these Tommy guns because the mobsters are shooting up people with them.
Granted, they were doing that.
Yes, they were doing that. But
they were.
But the only people that are going to give up those guns are people who follow the law. And mobsters shooting up people and buildings and stuff like that don't follow the law by definition. So why would they care if they get another slap or another charge slapped on to murdering 10 people with a Tommy gun? Who cares?
Yeah, and my guess is after that law got passed, they still kept shooting people with Tommy guns after that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm very excited.
Mr. Capone, looks like you have 3 life sentences consecutively, and also we're gonna add 10 years on top of that for your gun charges as well.
Well, I mean, you could say that technically people did stop shooting people up with Tommy guns, and the mobsters kind of went away after the couple years down the road. But I think that had less to do with the law and more to do with
the lifting of prohibition.
The big war that happened shortly after that.
Yeah.
Probably had a lot to do with that and the industrialization of America at that point. But to each their own,
Whatever.
So that's GCA, correct?
Yes, that was the GCA. That was just the rundown of kind of what it does. Yeah.
And I like that quote you pulled up there, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language. I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
And it holds up
to this day.
So now we're going to get back to kind of the SHORT Act and the HUSH Act, and we're going to kind of go over the for those of you who don't know, what is a SBR, what is a silencer, suppressor, and like the modern uses in today, and how the NFA is kind of like within daily use, basically.
I'm
for
excited
gun
for this
owners.
part.
This is going to be interesting, and
It's
then
gonna be a fun
after we kind of explain to you, and we're gonna get into the weeds. Like it's gonna get like kind of ridiculous. Like
it's gonna be a little schizophrenic.
It is going to be. It's gonna be a lot for those of you who don't know anything about guns that are watching this, or maybe you like are interested in guns and have like a small amount of information. Like there's gonna be a lot, so you're gonna have to pay attention. I'm gonna try to be as clear, but it's gonna get confusing. But this is the type of hoops that you're gonna see that gun owners have to jump through on a daily basis.
It's stupid.
And how pointless and ridiculous that these laws are. So,
hold on. Before we get started, there's an important question we gotta answer.
Let's hear it.
Silencer or suppressor?
Both.
I think
say both.
I don't.
Silencer
really think it is the definition, right? Like,
silencer is what is on Maxim's patent for it. That is what the patent says is silencer. But culturally, it's termed suppressor because it doesn't actually make your gun silent like Hollywood silent. It's more of just it just lowers the decibels enough to not like permanently ruin your hearing, after shooting a gun without ear protection. Some calibers you can shoot fully without ear pro and be totally fine, like subsonic 300 blackout, subsonic 22 long rifle, stuff like that. Your 8.6, stuff like that you can shoot with a can on it to be totally hearing safe. But stuff like 5.56 or 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor, you're still going to get hearing damage if you have a suppressor on your gun and shoot without ear pro. So culturally, it's just suppressor just because it fits what it does more.
Right. I think the original term was silencer, and then culturally it turned into suppressor because silencer kind of. I think that was more of like an effort to kind of
de-Hollywoodify it.
Yeah, dispel some myths about silencers because there's people out there that think that you literally screw on a can and it's just like.
Yeah.
And that's not how they work.
Like the John Wick scene of him shooting that other guy in the airport with their pistols.
Yeah. The most ridiculous movie scene of all time. It's just people are just walking by and they're just like. It's hitting like the concrete like pillars and
nobody
stuff.
is noticing a single thing.
Dude, that had to be just like a little like throwaway thing. Like we're totally gonna screw with the gun guys in this scene here.
Oh, for sure.
Well, at that point, they've already thrown some things out the window.
The rest of the movie is pretty accurate.
Well, they were starting to move in that direction.
I love John Wick.
I love John Wick.
You get to the
Keanu
last
Reeves is
movie
a
and
national
he's
treasure.
fighting a blind guy.
The fourth one?
Yeah.
When does he fight a blind guy in the fourth one?
The whole thing, the guy was blind, wasn't he?
What guy?
The main guy, he used to be his friend, but he was hired to hunt him down.
The English guy or the French guy?
No. He was hired by that French guy.
Anyway, regardless of the fact, okay, so they, culturally it moved to suppressor to, dispel some,
some
myths
falsehoods
about it.
And,
But the only thing I'm against is the guy who's like, actually, it's a silencer.
Yeah.
It's the original word. That's the only time I'm like, shut up, dude.
Shut up.
If you call
Nobody
it a
cares.
silencer or a suppressor, it doesn't really matter.
Who cares? Shut up.
Right here.
Oh.
He's not blind. He's just Asian.
No.
Racist.
No, the whole.
You got a racist?
No. He was
here?
blind in the movie.
Yeah,
He was the blind assassin.
Yeah. That's believable.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's Asian.
Yeah.
They got like
They're
the
like half
samurai.
blind anyway.
They got the. They got like the
Can't keep
samurai.
that in there.
They got the samurai stuff going on. But
yeah, so that's kind of just about silencers, suppressors, blah blah blah.
And there you go. There's the first part of this. What is a silencer? A silencer is just a device that you screw onto the end of your barrel, or it'll screw onto a muzzle device that is on the end of your barrel. And basically what it's used for is it lowers the decibels of the gunfire. It also minimizes muzzle flash, and it can reduce recoil. I don't know if that has more to do with the suppressor itself, or it's the weight of the suppressor probably on the end of the gun. I'm not 100% sure about that, but
From my experience, I don't know. I don't know if it really is just the fact that you have an extra however many ounces on the very end of your gun. Probably. That probably has a lot to do with it. But I guess if your gun's tuned really well with the suppressor, I'm sure that helps too. But yeah, like you said, with muzzle flash, it definitely helps kill a lot of muzzle flash, especially on shorter guns, for sure, where there's a lot of unburnt powder coming out of the muzzle. That
yeah,
suppressor catches a lot of it.
it certainly can. And I mean, you see the movies, you watch the videos, like they're cool because the army uses them, and a lot of that has to do with muzzle flash
Mm-hmm.
at night. If you just shoot a gun at night,
Especially with night vision.
you're right. Yeah, exactly. So,
Unless you're using the Surefire RC3.
but
Ooh, got him.
wait, what? RC3?
The RC3 has huge problems with muzzle flash.
Does it?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah. Well, the RC2 is the gold standard.
Yeah, which I don't know
for-
why they screwed up the RC3 so bad.
Well,
Although that's kind
it's-
of just a general thing with flow-through cans
Yes,
anyways.
yeah,
But
yeah.
still.
anything
I would
flow
expect
through.
better from Surefire being how expensive they are. But whatever.
Yeah.
Surefire makes great cans. RC3 just doesn't have good flash reduction. Oh well. Anyway.
Which is anyway. We don't need to get into that, but
we're getting
basically
too
that's
in the
what
weeds.
a silencer or suppressor is just it lowers the decibels.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna get into SBR, which is on the SHUSH Act. In short, basically, it's just a rifle or a firearm, designed to be fired from the shoulder, just basically any gun, and it either has a barrel shorter than 16 inches or an overall length tip of barrel to the end of a stock under 26 inches. So this probably gets into like the bullpup stuff and
Yeah.
That stuff. That's just basically another little thing that they threw in there, I guess. But
Yeah. Do we want to
Now
demo
we're-
then?
yeah. So now that you know that, we're gonna get into some comparisons here. So what do you want to start with? We should probably
Let's start with the M16, just because that's just
This is a standard. Here, you want to show them?
Yep.
This is yours. This is the standard rifle.
So this here is an M16A1 that I did with my grandfather. It's not clone correct. I don't care. It's something I built with him, so it means something to me. But this is the original design that Eugene Stoner created when creating the AR-15 platform. This is it. So it was created with a 20-inch barrel, which is what 5.56 is designed to go out of. But this is a full definition of a rifle. It's got a stock on it, and it has a barrel length of over 16 inches.
Yep.
So this is just plain Jane, as plain as you can get rifle.
This is the base. This is like the base of, you walk into a gun store, you see it on the shelf. The only thing you're subject to is the NICS background check.
Yep. There's no
And
extra restrictions on it. It is just a rifle.
That's one you go into the gun store and you buy it. Yeah, walk out with it after the background check, of course.
Yeah. Again, all these are unloaded and cleared. We're good. Yeah, so this is just plain old rifle, nothing extra to it, no restrictions, nothing like that. And then we'll move on to
Let's go into an SBR. Actually, we don't have a true SBR.
no, we don't have an SBR, and I'm not
and-
about to make one.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
So why don't we do a pistol
Well,
then?
I could do this.
Okay, yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is my SCAR. 16 inches is the barrel restriction for the NFA. This is a 13.7 inch barrel. So
And
normally
they measure it from the face of the bolt to the end of the crown of the muzzle.
right.
If you have a removable muzzle device.
Right. So this, most of the time, this is a muzzle device right here. You can screw this off, put a different one on. This is basically a flash hider, muzzle brakes, whatever that you can put on here. But this is a 13.7, and there is a stock on here, one that you shoulder. So, this would normally classify as an SBR, and I would have to pay the $200 tax stamp and go through all the extra restrictions and all that stuff to be allowed to own this. Okay. But we're going to get into our first little caveat here. Mitchell mentioned it. If your muzzle device is removable, this would be technically, since it is not registered as an SBR, this would be illegal. But this muzzle device is not removable because it is pin and welded. So that puts this barrel over 16 inches, making it a regular firearm and not subject to the NFA. But go ahead.
So the muzzle device has to be pin and welded. Pinning and welding is basically where you would drill a hole through the muzzle device and into your barrel and put a steel pin in like a metal dowel into that hole, and you would weld it in there so that no matter how much you cranked on it, well, I mean, I guess you could theoretically crank on it and completely strip your threads. The idea is that you want your muzzle device permanently affixed to the barrel in a way that you cannot get it off.
Yeah, basically, the muzzle device right here, you're not going to see it on camera. Jax was getting nervous. He's like, please show the evidence that it's pin and welded. But Jax is my dog. But
yeah, so now it would be measured from the face of the bolt to the end of your muzzle device there.
Yes,
because that is technically your barrel.
Now, yeah, the muzzle device is a part of the barrel. If this gets messed up, the barrel's shot. I got to get a whole new barrel, and so normally SBR, and this is the first caveat. This is one of the hoops that you have to jump through to skirt the NFA, and that is allowed by the ATF and fits the rules. So, this is also a regular firearm. And these are like the big scary guns, right?
Yeah.
SBRs are supposed to be like the super scary guns, and suppressors are supposed to be make you extra tactical, all that stuff. And so now we're gonna kind of show you what a pistol is versus
a rifle.
So, we're gonna do this one. So you might as well compare your first one and then this one.
Yep.
And kind of explain the difference, what the difference between the stock and the pistol brace is.
Okay. So this is what's considered a pistol. Now this is a gun, and you can see that this has a barrel length of far shorter than 16 inches. This actually is an 11.5 inch barrel, and this muzzle device is not pinned and welded to it, which makes my barrel still 11.5. So this does not have a stock on it, though. Now, this little thing back here is not considered a stock. It's actually considered a pistol brace, or it's what it's called, a pistol brace. So, I'm allowed to own a rifle here that has a barrel length of shorter than 16 inches if I have a pistol brace on it and not a stock. Now this was developed by, I forget the guy's name who started SB Tactical, but SB Tactical is who makes this particular brace. Now this was for he designed it for his veteran friend who had I think it was an accident or something where he couldn't shoulder a rifle or whatever. And so this allows him to use the gun without uh violating the NFA. Now, they function basically the same because you can still shoulder them.
Yeah,
It's just designed differently.
let's do let's do a little bit of test. And I just realized how insufferable this is going to be for normal gun guys
Yeah,
listening to
it is
this.
gonna sound a little
But
cringe.
we're trying to explain to, the goal of this podcast is to change hearts and minds, so people who see this who aren't used to guns. So if you are a gun guy, I
am sorry.
thoroughly apologize. Just hang on. We're gonna get into the interesting, juicy stuff here in a little bit. But let's do a little test here, Mitchell. Show us how you would fire the regular, 18-inch barrel.
20.
Yeah.
How would I fire it?
How would you fire it? Let's just say you're gonna point at the
Point it right there at the camera.
lamp. He's not pointing at anyone in the. There you go.
Yep, right there, just like that.
Okay. Now, show us how you would fire your pistol. That is approved by the ATF. Interesting.
They're the same picture.
Just one has a longer barrel.
One has a longer barrel.
And one you
One you have the stupid piece of Velcro on the back.
and the rubber. I don't like pistol braces. I don't own one. I never will.
They aren't.
It's just they're not bad.
They're not bad, but
I
they
hate the
also are
idea
not-
of them.
Yeah, it's just dumb.
You don't want to say it, but it is what it is. It's a stock, and you're allowed to use it like it's a stock. It's just
Yeah. And actually, there have been, back and forth with the ATF too about pistol braces as well.
You used to back in the day. You were not allowed to put it to your shoulder. If you had that, you were not allowed to put it on your shoulder. That was illegal. If you were caught putting that pistol brace on your shoulder, you would go to jail.
It was even worse, I think. It was initially, it was fine. Totally fine. Use it however you want. And then the ATF is like, oh, people are using these as stocks? Oh my goodness. Well, we can't have that. You can't put it to your shoulder. And then it was, okay, you can put it, like an inch off your shoulder. That's cool. So you can like hold it up like you would a rifle. Because actually, how you were originally,
You're
supposed
go
to
around your
use this is you're
forearm.
supposed to put your hand through this, and hold it. I'm not gonna take my Velcro off because that's a pain. But yeah, this would wrap around your forearm here, this piece of Velcro, and you would shoot it one-handed. And that would be easier for you to hold it one-handed. But then the ATF caught wind, people are just buying short-barreled rifles and putting braces on them, and now they're pistols, and they're just skirting around the NFA. And then it was fine, and then it wasn't fine. They were going to consider these short-barreled rifles with the SBR rule, or the pistol brace rule, like 2 years ago or a year ago at this point, and then it just got smacked down again. It's stupid.
It basically, whatever party was in office, it was swing back and forth, and whether or not they were going to give you crap about it. But at the end of the day, I do hate them based on what they represent, but I am glad for the guy who made it, because he probably is responsible for, you could argue, putting SBRs in common use today.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah.
Thankful for that, at least. I still will never own one, but
I'm just kind of waiting to see what goes on with this, because depending on if the SHUSH Act goes anywhere or not, I might just SBR it anyways.
Okay, so
I have a suppressor. I have multiple suppressors at this point, so I don't care about the registration.
We're gonna get into like the pistol logic a little bit more here. Okay, so
face the mic, Bo, when you're talking.
Yeah. I grab next two items in question here, and this is just going to be to show the a little bit more on pistols and how kind of ridiculous they are. This is unfortunate that we have to show this gun on here, but it is the only one that we had. I don't own this gun, by the way. We're not gonna say who made it, but
everybody can just tell by the handguard. The gun guys can just look at the handguard and just be like, "Yeah, I know."
Okay, we're not gonna go there today, but this is
Humble beginnings.
yeah, right. This is humble beginnings for a lot of us. And some of you may still be there, but this is your AR pistol. Okay, this is judged the same way as this. Okay, and both pistols. This is big scary gun, right? And this not so scary, but same. Even to illustrate the point, which is why I brought this on here, is they take the exact same mag. But
it's a Chicago special right there with that 30.
Right, or I could do this. Same. But you put Mitchell's stock from his 18-inch gun and you slap it onto here,
felony.
You're going to jail for 10 years.
Straight to jail.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, for the record, we do not intend to do that. This is just for educational purposes. So yeah, you do that. If we did that on camera, we would be going to jail.
We would
for 10 years.
Hear the FBI or the ATF and FBI like actively set dat cord on your front door.
Well, actually, as soon as it touches the buffer tube, a flashbang would go off and they would just shoot jacks.
As a matter of fact, no, according to the ATF a couple of years ago, you wouldn't even have to have your stock touch your pistol in order for them to ruin your life over it.
We're going to get into that right now.
You do have an SBR over there.
No, I don't.
You do.
It's not. Oh, I do. And that's for the end, but I didn't want to bring it out just yet. So, now we're going to get into... Well, I might as well just do it right now. So basically, if you go off of the NFA, the most scary gun you could ever have is a suppressed SBR. Correct? It's the most dangerous
NFA,
gun.
That's breaking multiple. That's hitting multiple points there.
Yeah,
double the scary factor.
Super dangerous. You should never ever be allowed to own one. Why would you ever own something so dangerous?
Ever.
So I'm gonna show you the scariest gun that we've showed you so far. Okay, we have, out of all the guns you've seen so far, this one is by far the scariest according to anti-gunners, right? So here it is. Here you go. A suppressed SBR.
Mom, pick me up. I'm scared.
Not even semi-automatic. You got to use a bolt to operate it. There you go. Suppressed SBR. Scariest gun you could possibly own, right? The most dangerous. So this barrel's 12 inches. Suppressor. For legal reasons, this does have both the stamps. I have them with me. This is a registered SBR and registered suppressor. So there you go. Big scary gun. You have to go through rigorous background checks and multiple violations just to own one of these. So here you go.
I'm still mad that when you got your Canon SBR stamps that that was like when the ATF was really ramping up their speeds on approvals. When did you get your can approved? How many days?
I
3?
don't remember. It was not very long. It
It
was
was like 3 to 5, I think.
it was maybe 3.
And I did mine when eForms first came out, and it was like 9 months for both of mine.
Yep.
And that's not even talking about, I had it easy compared to the dudes that did it back when it was still paper, and that was still like a year or more.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's gotten much better as of recently, but still. So now we're gonna go into different ways that the ATF and the government can screw you over with these rules and why you have to be extra careful. There is such a thing called constructive intent,
Yeah.
right? And so this is why you have to be careful when you are, building a gun or buying guns. You have to be extra careful. So
Even storing guns.
Even storing guns, and you have to consider other guns that you have in your current possession. As I'm getting ready to show you, because if you're not careful and you aren't read into all these rules, the ATF can send you to jail, even though you are you
didn't do anything.
A law-abiding citizen trying to, own guns, defend your family. You can get sent to jail just by not knowing the rules and ruining your entire life. So I'm going to show you an example here. So this is the beginning part of a Gordy clone, okay?
Actually, clone correct, unlike my M16.
I don't know if it's 100% clone correct, but I'm trying to get pretty close. But basically, this is the movie from Black Hawk Down.
The gun from the movie Black Hawk.
This is the movie from Black Hawk Down.
I am an idiot. Anyway, this is the Gordy's gone, man. I'll be outside.
Rip.
So, if you see the movie, there is a suppressor on here. They're not in stock anywhere right now, so there's not one on here. And as you can see, there is no stock on here. But for context, this barrel length is 14.5. So this would technically be an SBR
If you had a stock on it.
if I had a stock on it. But here's
Right now, it's a pistol.
Right, but here's where we get into the constructive intent deal. So I bought the upper part, which is the upper portion right here. This upper, I bought this separate from the lower. So let's say, since this is a 14.5 inch, which is smaller than 16 inches, and I had a regular AR pistol lower, not AR pistol, AR-15 lower that had a normal non-pistol stock on the end of this.
And say we were to take the stock off my M16 and put it on there, SBR, illegal.
Hypothetically, if we were going to do that, that would be illegal and my life would be over. I would be sent to jail and my kids wouldn't have a father for 10 years. Well, unless my wife got remarried, which that's neither here nor there. But anyway, but yeah, that's just one of the things. And I'm not your classic, AR guy. And I know there's people that are raging right now, like, how can you call yourself a gun guy? You don't own a single AR, traditional AR. Well, let's calm down.
I got him to buy a Glock and an AR in the past few weeks.
Well, yeah, so this is technically my first AR. I own AR similar guns, but my gun's like this SCAR right here. Okay. The SCAR has a shorter barrel than this gun. But since this is pin and welded, it's over 16 inches. This isn't an SBR. This one is. There's no muzzle device at the end of this gun. But like this stock that's on the end of this gun, where you attach your shoulder, is not compatible with an AR-15. and I have other similar guns that are the same, that have stocks that are not compatible with AR-15 stocks. So I can attach the lower to the upper because I don't currently own a stock compatible with this gun.
Yeah.
But let's say you're a regular gun guy, you buy this upper, you buy a lower, you should get your SBR done on your lower before you ever even bring it home. Because what can happen is you bring it home, you have an extra stock laying in your closet, you make the wrong person mad, you could be going to jail just because you might not even have it attached to your gun, but it doesn't
say
matter.
for instance the police show up your house for something, you're playing your music too loud or whatever, you're jamming to Iron Maiden a little too hard, and your neighbors call you in for a noise complaint, whatever. For some reason, cops search your house and they find in your safe, or for anything, you know what I'm saying. If the cops were to somehow search your safe and they find that a pistol length upper and a rifle lower with a stock on it are anywhere in the vicinity of each other, are just existing in your home, they could say, oh, that's constructive intent to make an SBR because you have the ability to create an SBR, and so now you're going to jail.
Yeah, so not only do they have the power, they don't have to prove that you are.
Yeah, they don't have to prove that you did it, that you made one,
And
just the fact that you have the ability to do it.
Right, exactly. So luckily for me, they raid my house. They're not going to find a stock in my house that's compatible with this gun. So luckily, I don't have to worry about that, which is why I can attach the lower to the upper because I bought it this way without a stock on it. It came just this part, no stock. So this is technically a pistol right now, in this configuration. But before I finish the build, basically whenever the suppressor becomes available, that's when I will get my double stamp for the suppressor and for the stock to make this an SBR. Even though this barrel is longer than my rifle. But this is an SBR and that one is not. Yeah. So now we're getting into the weird, confusing rules. But this is the type of
garbage that we have
garbage
to
that
deal
we
Can
deal
we
with.
do something real quick?
Yes.
Oh, you can put that down. Mitchell, grab your pistol that you have. You want to hand me mine, and then you grab the Glock. And just hold it up. Okay, Drew, just flip between us quick. These are all the same.
Legally, these are the same guns.
On paper, these are the same guns.
According to the ATF.
Yes.
Actually, Bo, as a matter of fact, if I were to take this off and put that on that gun, totally fine. But if I were to take, say, this lower off, if I were to take this off and put it on yours, jail.
Straight to jail.
Straight to jail.
And
silliness.
It is insane. Even though you use that the same as the other one.
Same thing.
Yeah, it is. It really is insane and it's infuriating. But this is the kind of stuff you have to go through as a gun owner. So that's why we're trying to provide information to everyone out there, because you have to know the rules and you have to be careful because even if you're trying to follow all the right rules and do all the right things, you can still end up in jail, and your life ruined. So that's why we're doing this, and it's also to show you how ridiculous the rules are.
You can talk about foregrips too. on pistols?
Yeah, so pistols, you can't put a vertical foregrip.
You can have an angle foregrip on a pistol, but you cannot have a vertical foregrip on a pistol.
I don't think we have anything with the vertical foregrip.
No,
No.
we don't really use those.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, hand stops are all the rage these days. So even though,
But it goes to show the one that Mitchell had and the one I had, exact same thing. But if we just put a vertical foregrip on the front of that,
Joe.
didn't change anything out, just that, that's also breaking the NFA.
yeah. So I don't know how we can illustrate how stupid that is, but wait, yeah, Mitchell, hold up your pistol, your AR pistol.
So here's mine. This is just a hand stop, just the BCM style hand stop. This actually isn't a BCM; it's a 3D printed one I made. But so this is totally acceptable to be on this pistol. And
Right. So if you
No
don't know what
problems.
a vertical foregrip is, it's just a, like you see it. Luke can pull up a picture of it right now, but it's just basically it's the broom handle.
Do you know what
Back in the day, you used to
yep,
five-finger death grip on that thing.
Yeah. Trying to find a picture of someone holding one. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you would never hold one like that.
Not
I
like
mean, if
that.
you knew what you were
No,
doing, but
yeah.
this
But
is
you
a
get
hand stop as
get the
well.
idea. Yeah.
You get the idea. I could have a vertical foregrip on there. Mitchell cannot because bad.
Prison
time. So there's a couple other like little nuanced rules and stuff like that, but that was all to show you
How silly the short barrel rifles
the
rules are.
ridiculous rules of SBRs. Not to mention that, can you really think of, how SBRs are more dangerous in general than
So their thought initially, or
Was
at
the
least their
concealability,
excuse,
right?
was the concealability of a longer weapon. Okay, give me 1 second here. How am I gonna conceal this? Under my jacket? How would you do that?
Here, Mitchell, you want to hold these up to the camera? Which one could you conceal? Which one are you gonna throw underneath your tank top there and hide?
Oh man, I don't know. Honestly, you can't,
Here, you want to hold them vertically so you can.
or horizontally. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So no, there's no way that I could possibly conceal one of these under a jacket or anything like that, which is why it's silly.
Right. But that is the whole idea behind SBRs, right? Is
It's more concealable.
it's more concealable, therefore much more dangerous, correct?
Correct.
Not to mention if you have a shorter barrel, that does affect the ballistics of
Yeah.
and making your range less effective based on the caliber, stuff like that. But
Yeah. So like, it's completely dumb.
yeah. So
I'm not gonna throw that gun underneath my tank top and hide it.
right.
It's not concealable.
Not to mention they are in common use, which is also a part of the whole discussion, right? Weapons within common use. I don't know exactly how that plays into everything, but
For DC versus Heller, which was a case about in common use, was I think that it was like something like 9,000 or something like that tasers was considered common use. I think it was something like that. But yeah, it was a pretty low number of, like tasers or items or whatever for being in common use. I think that was DC versus Heller.
okay.
Maybe I'm dumb.
Well, anyway,
I'm probably dumb.
there you go. There's the deep dive into SBRs and suppressors. Sorry, gun guys. I know that was, and sorry, listeners too. If you're listening to this and not viewing it, that would be a pretty rough listen.
Yeah.
If you
All right,
are
guys.
listening to it, this is an episode where you should probably, go to
Probably watch it.
go to the YouTube.
All right, first
so
point,
you can
look
get
at
some.
this. Second point, look at this.
Yeah,
All right,
Yeah.
thanks for watching.
Mitchell, hold those two up so we can see the difference.
Dude, speaking of suppressors, I scorched my knee with my suppressor 3 different times today on the range, and it was awful. My knee is wrecked.
Sounds like user error.
Yeah, that's what I get for wearing shorts to the range.
Is the fan off?
I think so.
No.
What? Oh, the air conditioner?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's hot in here.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I totally got scorched with my can.
All right, let's take a break real quick. I'm gonna go turn that fan back on, and then when we come back, we're gonna dive into crime statistics.
I'm excited for that,
This one's gonna be fun. This is gonna be the good part. So,
for sure.
all right, we'll be right back.
Quick break from the sponsor.
So you're just walking around at 16 mgs all day long,
to the cranium, bro.
and whenever we get on, like, online, he's like, "Bro, I got foreign right now."
Gosh.
I'm like, dude, you're rocking a solid 32 milligrams or whatever we're at one day. I'm like,
No comedy.
there's
You need
dudes
to
that
chill. You need to dose it down.
Well,
Dude, it's just gonna get to the point at some
it
point in
wouldn't
my
be
life.
so bad if it wasn't. Like, if it was, I would be like, okay, whatever.
Well,
Like,
you wonder. You see, like,
When I buy, I do 2 of the 12s.
the problem is with going upper deck is I spit way more, which I don't like.
I do spit a lot.
salivate
Well,
more.
actually, the funny thing is, I spit way more when I put them in the bottom.
It's because it's in a fresh spot, which is
Yeah.
why when I put it in the top,
Yeah, when I
spit
put it
more.
in the bottom, it like totally jacks my head up.
Yeah, it's just wherever your comfort spot is.
Yeah, but that's how I started. I started with 2 8s to the upper decker, and that's just how it's always
That's
been.
how you started off the jump.
why did you start? Why did you start with that?
I don't
That
know.
dude, you know what
Because
that
I was quitting
Check these things
vaping.
out. I'll put
'cause
2 in.
So
dude,
what it
you
was,
know what that is? You know what that is? That sounds like. Yeah, I mean, when I was in high school, I just went straight to black tar heroin.
well, that's what it was. That's what it was. Was I was vaping and
Wait, weed was your gateway drug? I started meth when I was 9.
dude,
I didn't have my
I
first
was
beer. I
ODing.
had my first 4 Loko.
I was ODing on Tylenol since I was 6.
I was butt chugging crack.
Butt chugging crack. I was
Yeah.
doing
I was-
heroin enemas for
Ru-
fun.
I was reverse inhaling meth when I was 4 years old.
I would take a syringe to my eyeball every day. What is
It's
this
like the
become?
first person who got you into chewing was like a recovering like heroin addict. Is what
You.
it sounds like.
No, you didn't get me into chewing. I did have my first dip with you though. Was your Copenhagen long cut at the shop?
I was at the shop.
The long cut.
Yeah.
That's how I started.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, actually, that was the first dip I ever had. Was a Copenhagen long cut, but
You had a pouch.
Was it a pouch? No,
Yeah.
no, it wasn't.
Yes, it was because I made fun of you for like
No,
it
wasn't.
was it was Skull Mint Extra.
I don't think it was. I thought it was. I thought it
Uh-uh.
was your Copenhagen long cut wintergreen
Was it?
at the shop.
I guess you would remember probably
Yeah.
better than me, but
Because I remember actually pinching it, and you said that's a pinch, and so I had to take more. I remember that.
by the way, my first pinch was so minuscule tiny. Dude, it was
Yeah, dude, you made me pack a whole log, dude.
like Mitchell's. I think I am starting to remember. Like Mitchell's first pinch was like twice the size as my first pinch.
Yeah. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm like curled up over the bench, just like, is this
Dude,
supposed
he's-
to make you feel like this? And you're like what? I'm like, I'm gonna puke. And you're like, oh yeah, that'll do that. And I'm like, okay.
That's how
Yeah.
you're supposed to feel.
Yeah, that happened. Dude,
Excuse me?
Luke threw up.
Yeah, he did. But yours was pouches.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. Something about them pouches. But I had
But-
the one in, and then it was like 2
Did-
minutes. I was like, I'm not really feeling anything. And you're like, oh, you just got to do another one and put it upper deck. And you're like, you put it on the top this time. So I left the bottom one in, and I put the top one in.
Dude, you're terrible.
I'm the worst.
And then we go into the gas station, and I'm like,
Dude.
waiting my turn to go pee. And I don't know why I didn't just go wait outside, but I was like waiting inside the gas station. I'm like, I can't spit anywhere. So I was trying to hold it in my mouth because I'm like, I don't want to swallow this, and I can't spit anywhere.
Dude, if you swallowed it, you would have puked.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
definitely swallowed some of that.
Jax.
And
he definitely puked.
yeah, we made it to an exit, and I said, you better pull over immediately.
You made it quite a long time before you threw up, though.
Yeah,
long
but I
was
was
it?
I
Like
was ready.
Like 15 minutes?
I was ready before we left the
Yeah,
square.
because we went to was it a hockey
It was
game?
a hockey game.
Yeah, we went to the hockey game, and then we made it all the way back to home when we were living in a duplex.
Yeah.
And we got to the roundabout exit to get to the duplex. He threw up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's like, pull over. It was in the middle of
That is
winter.
that is
Yeah,
a
it
long
was.
time.
He's like, he waddled all the way out to the middle of the field to go throw up.
Puke on the road.
In the
Open
snow,
the door.
In the snow, yeah. I was like, dude, you could just puke out the window while I was driving. I, don't
Yeah.
give
I
a
didn't
crap.
I didn't know what was gonna happen to me at that point. I was like, I better get away from the car.
Puked on the side of the van from the Quick Trip Tornadoes on our way to work one morning.
Oh.
He's like, dude, I don't feel good. You're going to have to drive. And so I drove, and he puked right all over the side of the van and the window.
Oh gosh.
But
right.
yeah, so that's why I do 2 upper deckers is because I was quitting vaping, and I needed an alternative for vaping that gave me like that hard hit like I liked from the vape. And so I didn't get it from just the one pouch. It was always 2 on the top of my mouth. And so I'm like, okay, that's what I'm doing now. That's how I started.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at vaping and stuff like that, so bad for me. Like that stuff totally wrecked my lungs. And I
Wow.
can notice the difference at jiu-jitsu now. My cardio is so much better. I can last so much longer during sparring.
Quit laughing over there.
But yeah, it's like I can go through.
Well, it probably also has to do with you doing jujitsu more.
You are training.
Yeah, true.
But I'm sure, yeah, yeah, you probably. But I more or less. I mean, I don't do tobacco really anymore, so it's just like
Yeah, I
it's
think,
not really bad. Like nicotine is a good thing for your brain.
in some cases, sure, yeah.
I
But
think in most cases, I think in all cases, really. It,
All cases.
whole cases.
it-
Do
it-
nicotine, kids.
It is well, a lot of like the health people now, like they do nicotine gum.
Yeah, that's probably the safest way to consume it, I would think.
Yeah, it's like supposed to. It's like what? How do you say that word? Nootropic.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I'm not a brain scientist. Anyway,
Yeah. Welcome back from the break. Let's get right back into it, I guess. Right.
yeah, we're gonna talk about crime stats with NFA items.
Yeah. Apologies to all the gun guys in the first half of this episode. You know.
Sorry that was rough.
Yeah, thank you for sticking with us, and to all the new gun people or people who don't know all the rules. Like, I hope that was informative. But now we're gonna get into more interesting stuff, maybe that even gun guys will appreciate, and hopefully you can use these statistics and arguments if you run into anti-gunners.
I haven't seen the stats. I'm excited to see this.
I was very, very pleasantly surprised by the stats that I found. They're very interesting, and I know when we get to the end, you're gonna be like, I didn't even think that was the case, but. Okay, everyone, I just want to cut in here on this podcast. Since we're doing a deep dive, I want to make sure that everything in this episode is really tight. And this is the part of the podcast, it's our first deep dive, so I apologize, but it was basically the worst monologue you've ever heard your entire life. And also, this is the third time that I've re-recorded this section of the podcast, so if it doesn't work out this time, then you guys are just going to have to suffer through that. So, yeah, hopefully it works. But I just wanted to go through these stats and, make sure all the visuals are up there. So it's pretty easy to visualize, basically, versus me just reading off a screen and you guys just staring at me. So I posed a couple questions when I started out with these crime stats. First one is, what happened to crime after NFA was established in 1934 to present day? We talked about prohibition and its role in the reason why the ATF kind of got started and how the NFA came about. Basically, prohibition was a disaster because the U.S. government created a bunch of felons that didn't need to be felons. And so directly after prohibition ended in disaster, how did the U.S. government learn from that? Well, they created more unconstitutional laws. So the first time, unconstitutional laws equals more criminals. So directly after that, their thought process was, well, let's make even more unconstitutional laws to fight the rise of criminals that we just created from the previous unconstitutional laws. So makes a ton of sense. So what happened to crime rates directly after that? It did go down right away. So 1934 is when it was implemented, right? And then it kind of dips down a little bit. And this stat is just firearm homicide rate. It's the best set of stats that you can kind of go off of because the FBI's advanced crime statistics and it come on till later on. So the best set of data that we have to go by how often gun crimes were committed is homicide rate. So right after they passed it, it goes down a little bit. 1950s happens. In the 60s, it starts to come back up again, and then really continues to go up by the decade, and hits a peak right around end of the 80s, early 90s is when firearm homicide rate is at its peak, and then basically 2000s dips way down. And then over time, the past 20 years, just kind of started to climb back up a little bit. COVID was a huge part of that, and I'm going to get into that right now. So these are some major, these are some major events that happened along this timeline that, based on my research, could have contributed, may not have, but I thought it was kind of funny when I was doing this research because it was basically it dips down right after the NFA is implemented, and you could look at that as the NFA is making the homicide rate drop, or you could look at it as World War II that was happening right here, and then it stays down for a little bit, and then it starts climbing back up. GCA is implemented. Does that actually prevent any homicides? No, actually, it just continues to go up. And when I was doing my research, I thought it was hilarious because one of the reasons why it says it the crime was so bad in the late 80s, early 90s was just crack. So I had to put it in, for your guys' viewing pleasure there. So, but there was a lot of social unrest. The war on drugs was really bad around that time, so it's not a far cry from the truth. And then you have GWAT, basically, 9/11 happens, global war on terror kicks off. I'm not saying that's the reason why it dropped. All this stuff is like I'm pointing out significant events along this timeline that happened that may or may not have contributed. But the crack one, the research was pretty sure that crack was involved. And then COVID, obviously, giant contributor. We've seen that in recent times, so that one's pretty easy to prove that crime went up during that period. So not much debate there, but I digress. When we're talking about gun violence, we have to really understand like the scope of what kind of crimes are used to measure, because it's a term that we hear all the time, right? Is everyone hears about gun violence. So what is that actually even talking about? Gun violence is measured by 3 major categories. Typically, it's just referring to when a gun is used for a homicide. That's the big one, right? Is you use a gun to kill someone. That's the one that everyone's worried about. Then you have the main category of gun violence is just aggravated assault. So, like, that could be like shootings that, like someone shot at someone and didn't like kill them, or like maybe shot at them, didn't even hit them, but that's what aggravated assaults are. And then robberies, obviously, you use a gun to force someone to give you their stuff. So all bad things, but these are the 3 that it's referring to when someone says gun violence. And as you can see here, homicide really only accounts for only 2% of that. And aggravated assaults is the main, slice of pie there at 83%. And then robberies it fluctuates to 10 to 15%. And that is throughout like the course of like the past 100 years. So all these stats are from when they passed the NFA in 1934 till present day is where I pulled all this data from. So like a lot of stuff is hard to track. You guys got to remember as well, because like I said, like the UCR, FBI is like advanced like crime tracking stuff that didn't come in until later on. So like the earlier stuff is like harder to track, but there is still data. So all this stuff is pulled from the most reliable sources that I could find, basically. And here's a little caveat here for, something to pay attention to. If you hear someone say the term gun violence versus gun-related crime. Gun violence is what we just talked about, those 3 major categories. And then gun-related crime is essentially all it is adding in this category right here, weapons law violations. And it's important to note that weapons law violations are non-violent. So you're going to hear the term gun-related crime, and your mind is instantly going to go to that 2% homicide, because that's like the trick, right? Is they want you to think that, these numbers are way up of guns killing people, but, you have things like robberies or weapons law violations that, robberies are violent, but like, even something or someone doesn't get hurt, it's still listed as a robbery and a gun violence or gun-related crime. And weapons law violations, they're non-violent. So this is like you're a felon and you're, caught with a gun, carrying a gun. That's a possession crime. That goes down as a gun-related crime. Let's say you're carrying a gun and you don't have a carry permit. That's a weapons law violation. So you're a mother trying to protect your children, and you didn't jump through all the hoops to, exercise your God-given right to protect yourself and your children, and you get caught. You could be hit with a weapons law violation that goes down as a gun-related crime. And there's like sale, manufacturing, and then obviously the big one that we're talking about today is the NFA violations. And the reason why people in the gun community, if you are not a part of the gun community. This is the reason why people get upset about stuff like weapons law violations, is because the numbers for uh, law-abiding people or majority of like people in the gun community committing actual crimes and the people arrested for weapons law violations, like the numbers are insanely uh, weighed on one side. Like the people that get busted down for weapons law violations is extremely high compared to the people who are actually committing crimes with those weapons, as we'll get to later on in the episode. But for now, I just want to point out that the 2% of the actual, gun crime, quotation marks, homicide, you could be someone who makes millions of dollars off of making movies about guns like Alex Baldwin, shoot and kill one of the, the camera people and not go to jail at all, because you don't know what you're doing with a gun. And the person who was supposed to be the weapons specialist, again, in quotes, the person who put real bullets in that gun on the movie set, that person only got 2 years. Obviously, it was an accident, it's treated differently, but it's not a 0% chance that the result of you violating a weapons law violation results in this. And that's why the gun community gets fired up about the weapons law violations, because this is obviously a picture taken from Waco. There's a whole the Waco stuff, that's a whole different deep dive, and I know this is kind of like cherry picking. It's not necessarily 100% fair, but this is just an example. Branch Davidians and David Koresh were never actually proven of actually committed weapons law violations. They were suspected on committing weapons law violations, and the end result is women and children burning alive inside of their homes with tanks outside. So when you hear people from the gun community get fired up about this stuff, this is kind of the stuff that we're talking about. So we're going to get back to the show. I'm going to be back to jump in on a different section, so enjoy this next section. Legal versus illegal status. Basically, in sum, nearly 100% of crimes involving suppressors or SBRs involve illegally owned devices.
So what you're telling me is that people that jump through the hoops of having to deal with NFA and buy the suppressors legally, none of them use them for crime. Not one.
Nearly 100% of all crimes involving SBRs or suppressors,
they're all owned illegally.
Literally all those crimes are caused by people who didn't follow the law.
Wow, who would have thunk?
Yeah. There you go. There's that number.
It's almost as if...
Wait.
It's almost
You're
as
telling me that someone that wanted to break the law
broke the law.
just broke the law? But wait, there's laws in place to make them not do that.
That's what I was going to say. So you mean to tell me that the people that don't want to follow the law don't follow the NFA as well? People that want to murder somebody don't follow gun laws?
All I'm saying is I asked a computer to go through all the numbers from 1934 to now, and it studied all the crime statistics for the past 100 years, and it says, in quotes right here, by the numbers, their involvement is practically a rounding error. That's the quote from this research.
Nice.
A rounding error.
Nice.
And you can scroll down and like this is the level of ridiculous. So like summary, these statistics underscore both the scale of everyday gun violence predominantly committed with a common handgun and the nearly non-existent role of exotic NFA weapons in street crime. So even with all these laws and everything, like we said, if it comes to a weapons violation or a gun-related crime involving an SBR or a silencer, they are almost literally all of them, like literally all of them, are committed by illegal possession.
So to play devil's advocate here, do you think that the anti-gunners might use those statistics to say that the NFA works?
They might, but that wouldn't be the case, because if you get into the total numbers,
Mm-hmm.
because what is the goal of the NFA, right?
Public safety.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So I guess that does play to your point that all gun crimes involving SBRs or suppressors have been by illegally owned items. Nobody buying them legally is committing crimes with them.
right.
So
I
I guess there's a counterpoint to that.
Yeah. So what you're trying to say is, since the NFA was acted, it's doing its job, and
Allegedly.
allegedly. So if you wanted to play devil's advocate, you would say the NFA works, but the problem with that is, if you're trying to protect public safety, why is if you go to the total numbers there, okay, so you have 30 million cases since 1934 of gun-related crimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we're trying to get rid of the bad guy guns,
Mm-hmm.
how come there's 30 million cases
Mm-hmm.
out of since 1934? If you're trying to protect public safety. So I would say, from my perspective, that, clearly the bad guys are still getting guns.
Yeah.
And if you look at the numbers, I think you can scroll back up, I think is where it's at, where it shows the number of all the crime that is, basically all the gun-related crime is related to handguns. So,
Which is
this gun.
very interesting.
Not this exact gun, but
yeah,
handgun.
all the crime is that one.
Well,
Specifically.
this is the
That gun might have done crime too, because that was an FBI trade-in. So
Oh, it's true.
Fun fact. Yeah, but that's interesting because the NFA originally had handguns as part of that list.
But they were scared that they couldn't get it pushed through.
because so many people own handguns.
So this whole thing was never about getting rid of
Gun
the
crime.
bad guy gun.
Because the bad guy gun is a handgun.
Yeah, the bad
Yeah.
guy gun is the one that
But it's also
they
The bad
took
guy
off.
gun.
Yeah.
The reason they left handguns off the NFA is because it's the most common self-defense weapon as well. That's why they left
It's
it
the
off.
most common gun in the entire world. I mean, they were using it, in like cowboy era.
Well, that is what it was though. It was the most common means of self-defense, so that's why they left it off.
And it still is to this day.
Yes.
I mean,
So that's why they couldn't get rid of them.
no, and they can't get rid of them. So
No.
like, if they really cared about gun crime, they would go after handguns, which is, the gun that you would use in crime. But, they want to tell you in the media that, this gun right here, this is the bad gun, this is the one that commits all the crime. But that's just, by the numbers, if you look at the sheer numbers, that is just not the case.
Yeah.
That is a lie and a fallacy that they made you believe. We'll get straight into total numbers. So that was all the statistic stuff. I wasn't satisfied with that. I just wanted the pure. Basically, I wanted to get to the shock value of the total numbers.
Mm-hmm.
They passed the NFA to present day. Violent crimes involving firearms, homicide, robbery, aggravated assault, is 30 million cases nationwide.
Since 1934.
1934. So past 100 years, 30 million violent crimes involving firearms. So the next stat I wanted was how many violent crimes were committed with a SBR or a suppressor. Both of those. Only a few thousand at most in total over the past 100 years.
Out of 30 million, a few thousand.
The rough estimate is 3,000.
Okay.
So 30 million to 3,000.
Nice.
Negligible at most.
What
Such
is that,
cases
1%?
are exceedingly rare. It's got to be smaller than that, right? But you scroll down a little bit more. So, hold on. Actually, scroll back up. Scroll back up. I want to get your guess. Okay. Of that 3,000
Mhm.
related, gun-related crimes with an SBR or silencer,
Mhm.
just that number over the past 100 years, how many of those were legally owned?
Well, judging by it being almost 100%, I'm gonna guess 99.8 were illegally
I'm
owned.
talking sheer numbers. So
Oh, how many?
how many
Of the 3,000 violent
many
crimes committed with an SBR or suppressor.
violent crimes? So now these
Out of the
total numbers,
3,000.
they don't involve weapons violations.
Okay.
So this is excluding weapons violations. We're just talking straight up violent crime, homicide, aggravated assault,
Mhm.
robberies.
So how many of those 3,000?
Yes. How many of those that were committed with the SBR or a silencer, how many of those cases were legally possessed? They went through the NFA process, got all the stamps, did all the right things. How many of those cases involve those guns?
I'm gonna guess 3.
Actually, pretty close. 2.
2.
2 cases over the past 100 years. There's only 2 known homicides that have ever been committed with a lawfully owned NFA firearm since 1934.
Jeez.
And that comes from thetruthaboutguns.com. This means nearly 100% of SBR and suppressors involved violent offenses were carried out with a unregistered, illegally possessed SBR or silencer.
And that comes from Giffords.
Yes.
Giffords is an anti-gun organization.
Yep.
They just dunked on themselves?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm back. So I want to point out another piece here. Mitchell brings up a great point when he's talking about people who aren't familiar with, the gun stats and stuff might try to argue that the NFA could be working, which is, a good argument. But if you dive deeper into the numbers, it really gets worse. I know, like, for most of us gun guys, like, we know that people who, like, there's just not a lot of evidence just out there in the media saying that NFA items are committing a bunch of crime. So I wanted to dive deeper into all that stuff and get, like, the real numbers and try to, get some visualization for that stuff, so people who aren't familiar with what an NFA item is can really, like, look at it and see the real actual numbers. So we're gonna look at guns that are, like, used in the violent crimes, like the guns responsible for violent crimes. This is going back to that gun violence term, right? So since 1934, there's been 30 million total cases of gun violence or guns used for violent crimes. Again, that is homicide, aggravated assaults, robberies. Handguns, to absolutely nobody's, surprise, being the most common handgun that's in circulation, or the most common gun that's in circulation right now is handguns. They are responsible for 62% of violent crimes. And amazingly, you have rifles, and that's not even just talking about like ARs. This is what we're talking about, like all long guns is this rifles category. And as we'll find out later, this rifles category also includes SBRs and even pistols or AR pistols. When crimes get committed with an AR pistol, as we just talked about earlier in this episode, do they throw that in the handgun category? Nope, that goes right into this number. So that makes this number even significantly like smaller, in my opinion. Shotguns, very common gun in circulation. That's only responsible for 1.9% of violent crime. But we have this unknown category right here. You might be asking yourself, like, what is that? Also, you have other, which is basically like antique weapons and weapons that are like homemade and like other like weird stuff. And it's 0.4%. It's basically nothing. But this unknown category right here is kind of like interesting because you're looking at all this stuff and you're like, okay, then what is unknown? So unknown essentially is just, if they don't find a firearm that happens in a crime, like a crime happened and they know a firearm was involved, but they never found it or like don't know what it is, that gets put into an unknown category. Or local law enforcement just doesn't record what kind of gun it is. That goes into an unknown category, which happens. So that's what this is. So it would be fair to, in my opinion, the fair part of this is instead of just keeping this unknown, because you're keeping this number way down. So if you extrapolate the unknown category into the rest of these categories, you end up with a chart that looks something like this, which is even more shocking. So you just take that unknown number and it's the same thing. You're just dumping that into that 34% or whatever it was. You end up with 91% of handguns being used for these crimes. And rifles goes up a little bit, but really not that much. This is kind of more or less to show you like how much handguns are like involved, like by way more. Just extrapolating the data, you have a 30% jump on handguns and a 2% jump on rifles and shotguns. It's pretty insane. So obviously, if the NFA is trying to get rid of, guns that end up being used in crime, they're going after the complete wrong gun, right? Because how much crime is that? We're just gonna I'm gonna do quick math real quick. I didn't plan on putting this in, but why not? So, okay, so 30 million, 90% of that is 27. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of an idiot. I probably could have done that in my head, but whatever. 27. So if you wanted to get rid of 27 violent gun crimes, you would have gone after the handgun, right? But they couldn't do that because there's so many and it's the most common that they know that they could never get rid of it. So they just settled for this number? And I guess that's a win, right? So what about NFA weapons? Earlier in that section that you guys just listened to, I talked about, there only being 2 crimes committed with NFA weapons, right? And I went back, and this number seemed really small to me, so I went back and checked, and I was wrong. And I think it's important to admit when you're wrong. When I went back and looked at all the NFA weapons, what I got was a lot more than just 2, right? It was noted as tens of thousands. It was even been reported in
less than 20 years. So 1983 to 2002, the U.S. recorded 36, so almost 40,000 incidents. So I was wrong about NFA weapons.
Got him! Got him!
It's like, that was actually illegally obtained homemade explosive devices. Those are what all those incidents were. That 40,000. It wasn't wrong when I looked into it, because I thought, I was like, there's no way. There's only been 2. I was wrong. There's only been 3 confirmed NFA weapons used. So I was wrong, but it wasn't that bad, right? There's 2 silencers, 2 confirmed homicides used with the silencer. Both incidents were legally obtained. The other NFA item that wasn't a homemade bomb that was recorded was a full auto machine gun that was legal. That case was actually a police officer that killed an informant, or was a domestic dispute. I didn't really look into that, but I didn't look into the case because I got 2 different answers. One was a domestic dispute and the other one was informant. So, but anyway, that's what the full auto machine gun. It was a law enforcement officer that killed somebody with his service weapon, basically. That was legally issued to him. So silencers. The other part of this is the FBI doesn't officially track unregistered devices like silencers used in crime. And I'll just add in here, short-barreled rifle. There's been 0 confirmed registered SBRs or SBSs used in a homicide. So this is all homicide stats, right? There's been a couple crimes, but not like homicides, the big ones. That's what people are worried about, right? Because we hear all the time, if SBRs were legal or shorter guns were legal, then they would be used, and because they're easier to hide. It's just the data's just not there, because there's AR pistols. There's a bunch in circulation. They're way more than short barrel rifles, right? And almost no instances of that either. There's very few, but trust me, if this was a problem that was rampant, we would hear about it all the time. And there's every town, they're extremely anti-gun. They've come up with maybe 100 instances of not even homicide, just a gun crime. If you see a giant number associated with NFA weapons that are crimes, just assume all of those are possession charges. It's not actually violent crime that people are getting charged with and getting sent to jail over. It's literally over paper errors, or they didn't pay the government $200 to send in their fingerprints and all that stuff. That's what those charges come from, basically. So we look at the small numbers, and then I know there's going to be people out there and be like, well, that just shows that the NFA works, right? I completely disagree with that. Because if we look at the amount of guns that are in circulation that the NFA covers, and you look at the actual amount of homicides that have been confirmed, you have all guns, just all guns in general, you have 450 million is, I don't know. People say it's 400 million to 500 million. So I just went halfway. Remember how much crime is committed with handguns, right? With extrapolated data, we have only 60%, right? That's also something to consider. So it's not like handguns are way, way, way more in possession. It's not really that much. It's only 20% higher than rifles and shotguns when you combine them. 60-40 split between handguns and rifles and shotguns. And yet handguns are committing 90% of the crime. And this number right here, we look at the term modern sporting rifles. That's basically ARs. When you see that term, for people who aren't aware, I know all of you gun guys are pretty aware of what that means. But like we said, if you add these up, SBR, AR pistols, full auto, suppressors, all these 4 right here, if you add all these up in legal circulation for what they are, and my main point in why the NFA isn't working is this slide right here. Okay. Confirmed gun deaths since 1934. There's almost 2 million confirmed deaths from guns. This number right here, this is all the NFA items that are legally in circulation right now. Okay? That's a lot. That's a lot. The amount of deaths that those items are confirmed to be used in is right here. I don't know how else to like visually like there isn't a graph because and we're gonna talk about it later on in this episode. Like there's no point in me even putting a graph up because it visually I don't even think it does it justice. Like, can you imagine you went and won the lottery and you won $30 million and you only got to keep like $3 of that? I mean, you'd be angry, right? And this is why all gun guys are angry, is because this is what we're like dealing with, right? Is you jump through all the hoops, allow the government to unconstitutionally violate you over a right that was given to you by God. We're answering for three gun deaths. Everyone's scared of the, scary gun death number, right? The U.S. government can only confirm 3 of those. All the other deaths that come from that is all speculation. And majority of NFA item is all illegal. All illegal weapons. You'd be probably shocked to learn that all those NFA items that were taken, literally all of them, all the mass shootings, you hear about mass shootings, they're all committed with Glock switches, right? Big shocker. Honestly, I don't know. For the gun people out there, I'd be more scared of someone with a knife versus someone with a Glock switch. Like, it's... they're so hard to control and stuff. Like, people should not be worried about those. So, yeah, if you've ever seen anyone shoot a full auto Glock, I recommend you go look that up and honestly try to tell me that it's a useful, like, super dangerous gun. I wouldn't say that it is. Like, yeah, it's used a lot, but that's just because they're easy to convert and use in crime. But I digress. The last point I want to leave you guys off with is this right here. And I'm not going to say anything, but I'm just going to leave it up. You guys can read it. And then I'll be done. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
Yeah, 2.
2.
Oh my gosh.
Think about how ridiculous that is.
Yeah.
Think about how 100 years. And
2.
And all you hear in the media. Well, that is
Your Q fix right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Only 2.
This big, scary gun that I went through the legal process to get.
You had
Even
to pay the government $400 to be able to own that.
Yes, that's just to get the rights for them to violate me through the legal process and get all my information, including my fingerprints. Over the past 100 years, only 2 of these have ever been used in a violent crime.
Out of 30 million violent crimes used with
Out of
guns.
30 million violent crimes. And I got a graph that we can pull up. And this is the first graph, so I kind of messed up when I did the graph. I did, violent gun crimes, 30 million. And then there's, it's supposed to say 3,000 or 2,000. Well, I guess it's only 2,000 or whatever.
Right.
But of those, how many were unregistered? And it was 2 less than the other number.
Nice.
So then I redid the graphs, and you can back out for a scale, a better visual scale for people that want to see. This is the next. This is the next one.
Nice.
Yep.
Comparison of U.S. violent crimes involving SBRs or silencer from 1934 to present. So 101 years.
If you're listening, it's a bar graph, and the first bar is total violent gun crimes over the past 100 years.
30 million. It's a nice big tall pillar.
It's just that basically, and then crimes involving SBRs or silencers. You can't even see it, and the other one, I'm pretty sure there's a question mark next to it. So,
which is crimes involving registered SBRs or silencers.
I asked them to do a bar graph in scale, and that's probably why. Oh, it's not a question mark; it's a 2. There you go.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. And I got some more. I really wanted to nail home this visual. So this is the zoomed in view. So now I got the 3-bar graph. I have the to scale one on the side, and then there's a zoomed in view. And then you have, the first graph, and you go to the graph next to it, the zoomed in view. And that bar is all on the left-hand side too, and that is illegal SBRs. And then the one that you can't see is all the legally possessed firearms.
Nice.
So even if you had unlimited access to NFA items,
Yeah.
meaning SBRs and silencers,
Mm-hmm.
you literally can't even see it on a bar graph. Like just that alone.
It's impossible
You're
to
talking
view with the
about
naked eye.
Yeah, we're talking about less than like 0.01% of all crime relating those items.
Yeah.
It's
Actually, let me do the math on this real quick.
it's an insane amount, and I think I put a pie graph in here too.
Mhm.
And you can just imagine what that looks like. I don't even have to show you what the pie graph looks like. It's just basically there. And the numbers are all jumbled up on the top because they had to force in the two crimes.
Mhm.
I like the all other gun crimes on the bottom of the pie chart. It's just one big blue circle.
Okay.
I like this dot.
Oh, it says right
Dot
there. Oh yeah, the dot chart.
Okay. So out of all violent crimes committed with a gun since 1934 to present day, the violent crimes committed with SBRs or suppressors that have been legally owned is 0.000006%.
How many zeros?
6.
6 zeros.
And then a 6.
Yeah, I think they nailed down the problem.
They got it.
I think they're cleaning up crime around here.
Yeah, for sure.
They got it.
Maybe it's not a gun thing. Maybe it's a societal thing.
Who would have thunk?
Who would have thought?
Degenerates doing degenerate things?
Yep.
And the people that go through the legal process and the crap and the loopholes and are jumping through hoops and stuff like that don't commit crimes?
Yeah, the people who follow all the laws and still get prosecuted for not knowing all the nuances.
Yeah.
Those people.
That's who we need to look out for, man.
Yeah, those.
You need to look out for Grandpappy who, ordered a lower from PSA and threw on his 11.5 upper from PSA. Thought he had a cool little gun. Straight to prison for him.
Yeah, let's treat all the people who try to follow all the laws to the letter as best they can. Let's treat those people like crap.
Yeah.
You know?
We can let the hooligans in, like, Cleveland, like, do whatever they want, I guess.
Yeah.
It's them
It's
Glock switches.
It's literally insane. Do I have anything else on there? Can you scroll down, Luke? Yeah. And
You can go
then
to the page.
No, that's it. So
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, yeah, as we can see, this isn't a gun related issue. And like you're saying, criminals want to commit a crime. They don't care what the law is. They don't decide what crime they're going to commit based on what law says they can't.
Right.
They're just going to do it.
Right, like the same principle applies to like gun-free zones. Like no criminal that wants to go like commit violence is gonna see a stupid poster on the front of a building that says, "Oh, this is a gun-free zone." And they're like, "Oh, man, I guess I just can't go kill those people then."
Yeah, and it gets tiring because that's the cliche, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the one that we all pound home, but like
Yeah.
at the same time, like
It applies everywhere though.
it like you almost get tired of like saying it because like it
Yeah.
feels like it falls on deaf ears most of the time.
Right.
But like I went through this whole like deal and the visualization of everything just to show the viewers like how insanely ridiculous the laws are in the first place. And
Right.
just to illustrate that like it really isn't a gun issue. It really is a individual issue.
It's a morality issue.
Yeah.
It is a morality issue.
And what is it, Romans 3, where Paul talks about how it's just we're all evil. There's no one good.
No.
Right? And there's something else that has to be present, for you to have that morality. Like morality doesn't come from us.
No, it comes from God.
Exactly.
And a godless society is a degenerate society.
Exactly.
I mean, you see that all over the world with, countries that are, and I guess it is everywhere. I mean, because we're all sinful people and corrupt and evil in our own ways. You may not like that, dear viewer, but everybody has their own problems. But it is, like you said, a morality issue, and a godless society is going to ultimately be degenerate and have all kinds of problems like this.
Yeah. Well, even specifically in the US, I would say like if you take a group of people and I mean, we could go into the crime statistics and, who's committing those crimes. And most of the time it is in low income areas.
Mm-hmm.
And if you create this media engine telling people, a group of people, that everyone hates you
Mm-hmm.
and the world is against you
Mm-hmm.
and there's no hope for you because everything is rigged against you,
Yeah.
how do you think they're going to act? Do you think they're going to pay attention to the rules that are in
Oh,
place?
for sure.
And,
Yeah.
and that's a whole different subject, but it goes to show you that, you can't just expect everyone to just follow the rules if you tell them that there's no point,
Yeah, exactly. And it's almost encouraged too. I mean, we saw what happened during, the pandemic, during the summer of love. I mean, it was pretty much just swept under the rug. All the riots and the violence and the looting was all just swept under the rug in the name of justice. And so
it's human nature. I mean,
yeah.
if you grow up, everyone is telling you there's no hope for you. You were born a certain way and you're just screwed,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what is your reaction going to be?
Yeah.
Your reaction is going to be, well,
Whatever.
Screw it. I'm going to take whatever I want because it doesn't matter either way. I'm going to end up in the same place, right?
Exactly.
So if you tell people that starting from a young age, they're going to believe that. So
for sure.
that is a society issue. That is not related to guns at all.
Right.
That's on the media. That's on the world. That's on your community. That's on those people pushing that agenda.
Mm-hmm.
That's what these numbers, that big blue circle right there, that's on those people.
Yeah.
That are pushing that idea on these people.
Right.
That is not on gun owners. That is not on
people
who follow the law to the letter, as you can see.
Yeah.
So that is why we need to put pressure on these politicians to get these infringements rectified because it's been far too long, 100 years
Yeah.
of infringement on our rights.
That makes no difference
That-
in crime statistics.
A rounding error.
Yeah.
A
Um,
rounding error.
Another thing about as far as like crime stats go and stuff like that, concealed carry, concealed carriers, like people that have concealed carry cards or carry every day, are statistically the lowest group for people that commit crime.
Yeah.
Concealed carriers commit crime at the lowest rate of any group, even lower than police officers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So if that's any indication of, what type of people law-abiding gun owners are,
Yeah.
that our crime rates are lower than police officers, I mean,
Well, if you just look at the community overall, like,
yeah.
how would you describe people who are, actively interested in guns or even just carry a gun? Who are these people?
They're
What-
people that care about their community. They care to preserve life in the face of evil. Like, that's why I carry a gun, is to defend my family and to preserve innocent life against evil.
Just think about.
That's my creed for carrying a gun. And so I'm not carrying a gun, to go commit crimes with it. Because if I was to do that, I wouldn't care about getting a concealed carry card, my concealed carry permit where we live. I wouldn't do that.
Right.
I would just go put my gun in my pants and go do whatever I wanted to with it.
Right.
But I went through the process of actually going through getting my concealed carry card, whatever, which isn't hard, but the fact that I went out of my way to do it legally goes to
Right.
show you what kind of a person I am. So,
But that goes to show you shouldn't have to. And I think
no,
about,
you shouldn't.
I think about the single mothers. I think about my wife, when I'm not with her. I can't be with her 100% of the time.
Yeah.
She has to go to the grocery store. She has to take the kids places. Like,
Yeah.
I think about people like that where it's like those people aren't looking to create crimes or start problems. They're looking to, protect their children against biologically superior, not biologically superior. That's going to make some people angry. But like
Whoops.
physically more powerful than them biologically. Like,
Yeah, a man
mean,
versus a woman is what you mean.
And you can't. I know the feminism thing. It's overdone.
I don't think that anybody truly believes that the average woman could beat the average man in a fight.
No, and especially a woman who doesn't train, a single mother going to the grocery store. Like, that's an ultimate equalizer.
Yeah.
Like, that is a deterrent. That is, mama bear doing mama bear things.
Yeah.
And she just wants to go to the store and get some bananas for our toddler.
Mhm.
And, she doesn't want to get physically abused when she goes to the grocery store or have her children taken from her.
Yeah.
So, it just gets so frustrating being constantly attacked all the time for your view. Just because you want to protect your family and defend your own life and protect the community too.
Yeah, you have to jump through hoops to be able to defend innocent life.
Yes.
And the same thing goes for the legal system too. I mean, how many stories have you seen of somebody defending their home, defending themselves or somebody else at, out in public or whatever, that catch a murder charge because your jury of your peers are retarded.
And this, I really like that we have this pie graph up here right now because it goes to illustrate, like, why should the people, that little sliver that you can't even see that's on that blue dot right there,
Mm-hmm.
those people, why are they the ones getting persecuted for the actions of the people that are in that blue circle?
Yeah.
Makes no sense. It's time that things change.
I forget who it was. It was one of our founding fathers. I can't remember who it was, but it was, I think the quote goes, it's better that 10 guilty persons go free than one innocent person suffer. I can't remember for the life of me which, I think it might have been John Adams. I don't remember exactly, but I know that was a quote that one of our founding fathers said. And I think that used to be how we looked at it, but we've since lost that idea in our society today, and it's kind of flipped. It's more of, it's better that 10 innocent people suffer instead of one bad person going free.
Yes. And all this is kind of going to show you that,
Mm.
you know,
It's a idea expressed. Rather 12 guilty walk free than one innocent suffer.
Yeah, Blackstone's formulation.
Yes,
what
William
it is.
Blackstone.
Okay, so maybe I'm just stupid.
but yeah, I mean, and this also, it just goes to show you how stupid, you know.
But
I
he-
mean, we went through all the illustrations, you know, this gun, this is the evil gun, but, you know, it's causing
2 out of 30 million murders or aggravated assaults or robberies with a gun.
right.
2 of them out of
Yes.
30 million in the past 101 years.
And it really goes to show you that they don't care about this number. They really only want the registry. And when the Means and Ways Committee, the Republicans wrote that in
Mm-hmm.
as, hey, we got the tax stamp. It's down to $0 now.
5.
5? I thought it was 0.
$5.
Luke, can you look it up? Either way, $5, $0. They're like, you know, these politicians are paying attention to what the people want,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. No.
No one cares about the tax stamp, really.
No.
I mean,
the tax stamp is inconvenient, sure,
yeah,
but
it sucks.
I would rather pay an extra $200 for my suppressor if it meant that I didn't have to send my fingerprints to the government. I didn't have to have my name in a searchable database by the government. If I could forego those things, then I would be fine with paying the extra $200 versus
I would,
paying $0 for the tax stamp, but still being registered
exactly.
with the government.
It's a clear infringement on a right. I mean, I don't know if you can look up the definition of infringement, but like it really is like they want the registry. And the ATF is not allowed to have a registry, even though we all know that they do.
They do. GOA uncovered that the ATF had something like 300 and some million records of firearms that was in a searchable database, which is illegal. Congress has already said in the past that the ATF or the government cannot, by any means, keep a searchable database on firearms ownership.
Why is that, Mitchell? Why would that rule be made?
Why would that rule be made?
Yeah.
Well, for one, they don't need it because it is our God-given right to own firearms, and there's no need for them to have that. But also, it's because it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment because, you're not supposed to have, unwarranted search and seizure. So they shouldn't be able to just be like, oh, what does Mitchell got? Oh, well, looks right here that he's got, his Centurion or his Geisley or whatever it happens to be.
So you're telling me that the ATF having a national gun registry is a violation of not just one right, it's multiple rights?
Mm-hmm.
So
Who'da thought?
what you're saying is the ATF's workaround of strong arming law-abiding citizens that buy certain types of firearms, strong arming them into a gun registry is wrong and a violation of our rights.
Yeah.
And that's been going on for the past 100 years.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Abolish the ATF.
We got to get rid of this stuff first, because
Yeah.
if you abolish the ATF now, it doesn't.
It just goes to the FBI or whatever.
It needs to be the NFA. We have to get rid of the NFA first.
Mm-hmm.
And step number 1 is getting the SHUSH Act and the SHUSH Act.
The SHUSH Act and the Short Act passed.
Yes.
We need to get them to the floor first.
They do. And that really, at the end of the day, it falls on us.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, if we know anything about our government, the only thing that they care about is money
And their next election.
and their next election.
Money and power.
And that's the only thing that they care about. So,
Mm-hmm.
and this is Republicans.
The person holding this up is David Kustoff from Tennessee's 8th District. He is trying to reword the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act and try to get it to be more appealing to the Democrats. And so he's not putting it to the floor for a vote.
And by the way, with the Means and Ways Committee,
Mm-hmm.
the Republicans pushing this through, they reworded those acts,
Mm-hmm.
keeping the registry,
But lowering the tax stamp.
and they're calling it a win.
That's not a win.
That's not a win. We don't care about the tax stamp.
I don't care about the tax stamp.
We care
I
about
care about the registry.
The registry and the violation of our rights. It needs to end.
Yeah.
And so we have to, all of us, we have to keep putting pressure on these politicians. And
I have been calling David Kustoff's office for the past week now. I haven't got an actual pickup on the phone yet. But
I'll go to
I've
voicemail.
been calling and leaving messages.
Did you try friending him on Facebook yet?
No, I did not try that.
You should try that.
I should message him on Grindr.
Shoot him a text.
But for real, like it is on us, because if you care about your rights being violated, like I'm at the point where I'm like, don't even tell me you're a gun guy and you care about, our rights if you're not calling.
There's a lot of people that are super black-pilled and think that we can't vote our way out of this, and I used to be that way.
We have to try, right? You
have to try. I mean, yeah, I get it. It is frustrating and it is aggravating to constantly just be, shafted by the government day in and day out on your rights all the time. But I think that the culture is shifting. That's what we're trying to do here, and I think that we still have hope, and that's what we need, is faith and hope that there is the possibility, even if small, that we can still make a difference and we can still get this legislation overturned or eliminated, the NFA and GCA. There is still the possibility of that happening, however small. If there's any sliver of hope, we need to take advantage of that.
Right, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, like,
because worst case scenario, if it doesn't, what, you wasted 30 seconds out of your day to leave a voicemail? Who cares?
Well, here's the thing, like it does suck having to, I mean, no one has time to, not that no one has time, but like it's tough to go through life and have an extra thing to worry about and, call a voicemail box essentially.
Yeah.
And feel like you're talking to someone who it's falling on deaf ears. But at the end of the day, if we don't start standing up and, trying to put pressure on politicians and doing your part, like, yeah, I get it. It sucks. But like the alternative is we can just sit back and, give up hope. it's
and
not
give up
gonna
more of our
change.
rights.
It's
The-
gonna keep coming this way if we don't go that way. You know what I mean? If we don't stand up at some point and start fighting towards the other direction, it's just gonna keep coming back the other way.
My counter argument to the people that are super black pill doomers about the state of the Second Amendment is a lot of you say, "Oh, I'm not giving up my guns if the ATF shows up to my door. I'm gonna fight them tooth and nail." Blah blah blah. You won't even call a voicemail box,
Yeah.
bro. What are you talking about?
Yeah. You won't send an email.
You won't send an email. You won't leave a voicemail.
Yeah.
You are giving up your guns immediately, bro.
Yeah. You'd rather get into a shootout with your family in the house
Yeah.
than call.
Yeah, shut up, dude. You're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Because that is the bare minimum least you can do. The next step is donate to GOA, donate to FPC,
Yeah.
donate to NAGR, donate to NSSF, join a membership of any of these gun organizations, these Second Amendment organizations, actually putting in the footwork on the judicial side of getting court cases heard to fight in the judicial system. Can't talk, it's late. But yeah, that would be the next step is sign up. It's like you donate whatever you want, $1 a year, $5 or a month, $5 a month, whatever.
Well, and that brings up another good point is there's other things you can do, like you should call, you should email if you care about your rights and you want it to go the other way, you should do those things.
Yeah.
Because the more people do that, the more pressure they're gonna feel, and the more they get outed, and the more you tell this is the guy that's holding it up. He's not holding up his end of the bargain that he ran on.
Even if you won't call and leave a voicemail or email, make a Twitter post, make an Instagram post, say, hey,
Tag these people.
yeah. Say, hey, David Kustoff, why are you holding up the Hearing Protection Act? What's going on, dude?
Voice your beliefs. But the point I'm trying to get to is there are companies, there's rumors circulating about certain, companies within the gun industry that are lobbying for keeping.
There's actually a new uncovered post about that, or not post, but information about that.
I mean, we're not gonna.
But it also doesn't. My point was that it doesn't sound like everything's as it seems necessarily, so it may not be as bad as we think.
Well, there's certain companies that make their business model is based on making going through the NFA easier.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why they're in business. So they have a financial interest in keeping those items on the NFA. You should at least be doing your own research and looking into those things. And these gun companies, there's a lot of people that aren't on the list of the GOA letters and the FPC letters, that are supporting these people financially, and they have a lot of money. You should be putting pressures on these companies as well, because they have a financial leverage that we don't have,
right,
as a community. So
I think all companies that deal with the NFA, specifically like suppressor companies, that's a big one. They all have an incentive to keep.
No, I wouldn't say that.
I would, because if you think about it, if say the NFA gets struck down and suppressors are completely unregulated, these companies now have to compete with Jim Bob down the road with a lathe that can churn out a suppressor for $150 in his shop. And now they're, $700 aluminum cans that, they're making are now way more expensive. So they're going to have to enter the marketplace with everybody else that has access to like a lathe or whatever. Anybody can make it. So they
Well,
they
they
do
should
have a
be.
exclusive position of being some of the only few that have the ability to make and sell suppressors because it's so hard to get into. So the competition's not as stiff, or is not as stiff. But once the NFA gets struck down, now it's completely unregulated and anybody can make them. So
Well,
there is that. I mean,
you can say that, but I would say at the same time, like,
yeah, they would just have to change their business model to go by volume instead of, whatever. But
I mean,
still.
so does every other gun part
But I think that's
that isn't under the NFA, like people making furniture, uh you know, like polymer furniture, like hand stop stuff like that. Like those guys, any like Jim Bob can make those. People are 3D printing those things nowadays, and
yes,
it's like
and
so
that's
those
why those
products have to get
items
better.
that's why those items are so cheap is because they're unregulated. If say handguards were regulated and restricted and only a select few companies had access to being able to make them, they would be able to run the market and do whatever they wanted with them because not everybody would be able to sell them. So,
I would say if you're a big suppressor company and you can't compete with Jim Bob with a lathe and a level, then you should have pressure put on you because
yeah.
what are you doing? You have access to engineers and you have all the advantages.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, really the overhead on
if you are that company, you should be outed because you're not willing to compete with a random dude down the street. Like,
realistically, what is the manufacturing cost for a suppressor? $20.
but they're
Maybe
also
maybe maybe $5 in material
they're also
and
gonna sell way more product.
see that's what I'm saying. They would just restructure the way that they do business to just go by volume instead of, the other way around. So,
I don't.
yes, they would be able to compete. They would just have to change the business model a little bit.
I don't even think they'd have to. I mean, the prices wouldn't even have to come down on them for a long time because, like I said, the biggest barrier to entry is the registry. There's a lot. Most people don't want to be on the registry,
Yeah.
the gun registry, which is completely understandable.
I get that, but at the same time, they already have a searchable database of people that buy guns because FFLs are required to keep 4473s in their files for 20 years, even after, or yeah, for 20 years. And then once they go out of business, or if they go out of business, they have to take all those files and give them to the ATF. So the ATF still has a database on firearms, not just NFA items. They have a database on firearms.
Which is also illegal.
Yes.
Or which should also be.
No, it is.
It is, but
is illegal.
they found a loophole.
But yeah, so
And if anyone accuses gun owners of jumping through loopholes, I guarantee you the ATF jumps through way
Way
more
more.
loopholes to
Way more.
violate the people that try to follow
But
the
yeah,
law.
so that's my counter argument. That's actually what convinced me to buy a suppressor because I was initially skeptical. I didn't want to, give the government my fingerprints. I didn't want them to have me in a database, blah blah blah. But it's like, okay, they already have my 4473s.
But that's the nihilist stance that I hate, is because that is
True, but I wouldn't have bought a suppressor if I didn't think that way. Then I'd probably be sad because suppressors are cool.
and it's a protection advice
Yeah.
or device at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like we said in the beginning, it doesn't make it Hollywood quiet, but it does
Yeah.
reduce the decibels of.
And that's another thing that we can scream till we're blue in the face and it'll fall on deaf ears like we talked about earlier. Yeah, it is a protection device. Everybody understands that, but they don't care.
No, they don't care.
But yeah.
They just see guns bad.
Guns bad because it is diametrically opposed to their authority. That's all it is. It's not for public safety or anything. Because if I guarantee you, if guns in America were to completely disappear off the face of the earth instantaneously all at once, the government would do heinous things to our society.
And it invites other countries in, which
Yeah.
is why.
Well, look at
That's
what,
the only thing
look at what
keeping him
happened.
in check.
No, look at what happened across the pond. I mean, they got rid of guns.
Yeah.
Then they started going after kitchen knives.
Yeah.
And then what do they start doing? They started arresting you for liking posts on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
they
I mean, look at Count Dankula.
government only. The only reason you have government is as soon as you start it, they're coming for power.
Yeah.
And the only thing we have in America is that's protecting that is guns.
That's it.
That's why no other country will invade America. There's been attacks on America, but no one will ever invade America as long as we have guns.
No.
There's no country on planet Earth that is
Dumb enough. Yeah.
to invade America.
No.
And that's why we're still the world superpower. Like, yes, we're the, economic powerhouse. Like, we fluctuate with the other superpowers, but ultimately what it comes down to is guns is a major part of why we're still the superpower.
I mean, our civilian population of gun ownership is probably like the third or fourth biggest military in the world. Probably the fourth biggest military in the world.
I think it's sixth.
Sixth?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even
it
doesn't even account for our actual military.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the civilian population.
Think about that. America has the biggest military in the entire world by a.
Not the biggest by person.
If we were
by
talking about personnel, it's China.
I think it's China. I think they have
Well,
like 1 million active service members.
I think we're the biggest
2 million,
overall
too.
if you account for all the things that we have. Like,
Yes,
spending.
equipment wise.
U.S. has the largest military spending.
we have
by far.
we have the greatest military that
Oh,
the
yeah,
world
absolutely.
has ever seen.
Absolutely.
It's not even close. We have the greatest military that the world
But
has
if
ever
you look
seen.
at like the stuff that civilians own nowadays, like our guns, our small arms and stuff that we have as civilians is so much better than most militaries in the world. I mean, you look at China's new rifle, thing's garbage.
Well, yeah, you just look at anything China makes.
It's
It's
fair.
fair.
But like, yeah, I mean, our weapons that we have here, they're all based off of United States military weapons. The AR-15, and the SCAR and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
And we're kind of, getting into all kinds of different topics, and
yeah,
we'll kind of
right.
we'll dive into other stuff later on.
We should do an episode on like the civilian population and firearms for like military wise.
Yeah.
Like talking about like the
Ooh.
militias and stuff.
You know, it'd be fun to do. Well, that might not be fun to do, but never mind. We'll bring it up later. But we're not gonna do super deep dives like this all the time. Like, there's gonna be more fun episodes, like just kind of random messing around episodes. But this was fun to do. I'm glad we talked about it. And
yeah, for sure. I know this was kind of a slog, especially for you guys that are super into guns like we are. Like, you've heard all this stuff before, at least most of it. But I think that it's important to get this kind of information out to people that may not know about all these stupid restrictions and stuff,
or like people on the fence.
Yeah.
We're at least trying to be a voice for people who think the same way that we do.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make our voice and your voice heard. And we're trying to.
That's our goal here.
That's the goal here. Is we're trying to change the culture. One person at a time.
Yeah.
And get the ball moving in the right direction.
Yeah. So thanks for sticking with us. I know it was kind of long and information heavy, but it's good. I like it.
Yeah, it was good.
We won't do deep dives like this all the time, but we've got plenty of good ideas for deep dives that I think we'll do in the future.
Yeah, and what I'm excited about is what me and you talked about earlier today about maybe getting some guests on here. Like,
Yes. Let's not make any false promises right now, but
but
I have some ideas.
I'm excited for if we can get some of that going. So.
Yeah, for sure. But again, guys, thank you for sticking with us this long. We really appreciate it. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends. That helps boost us in the algorithm, and that's what we need to get our voice out there. Follow SDK_rapscallion on Instagram.
If you like gun memes.
Good gun memes. Banging gun memes. Yeah, other than that, you guys have anything else?
Yeah, like and subscribe, share with your friends that are also interested in guns. And, if you have any recommendations or anything like that. I know this is our first couple episodes, so it might be a little bit rough to listen to. We're still trying to figure out the flow of everything and all that stuff. But
if you guys have questions or comments or whatever, anything you guys want us to hear, put them in the comment section. We'll look at all the comments and maybe we'll take some questions and answer them in future episodes. I think that might be a good idea. Good idea. Get some viewer engagement a little bit.
If you want us to read a comment or talk about a comment or whatever,
make it as heinous as possible.
Maybe don't do that, but leave a 5-star review, and we'll read whatever.
Yeah, and share with your friends.
Yeah, if you have a negative comment, just make sure it's a 5-star review so that I'll actually look at it.
Yeah, we won't look at anything if it's not 5 stars. So if you're gonna leave a negative review, we're not gonna even see it.
And if we're wrong about something and we got something wrong, let us know too.
Yeah, feel free to dunk on me in the comments if I got anything wrong.
We'd love to be proved wrong.
Yeah. I'd probably laugh harder if you roast me.
Yeah.
But yeah. Again, thanks for listening, guys. It's been Culture Warfare.
See you
guys
time.
later.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace out.